April 7th, 2026. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6. On January 21st, 2026, proper notice was sent to the electronic news sources of record, filed with the municipal clerk at the Township of Bridgewater, and posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building. Please be aware of the planning board policy for public hearings. No new applications will be heard after 9:30 p.m., and no new testimony will be taken after 10 p.m. Hearing assistance is available upon request. Accommodations will be made for individuals with a disability pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act, or ADA, provided the individual with the disability provides 48 hours advance notice to the planning department secretary before the public meeting. However, if the individual should require special equipment or services, such as a CART transcriber, 7 days advance notice, excluding weekends and holidays, may be necessary. I'd ask that everyone please rise to salute the flag.
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, Ms. Probst. Could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Vessio,
Here?
Mr. Bongiorno,
Here.
Councilwoman Isla,
Here.
Mr. Magora,
Here.
Mr. Pappas, Mr. Wang,
Here.
Ms. Sikora,
Here.
Mr. Banga,
Here.
Ms. Chartowich,
Here.
Mr. Chowdhury,
Yes. Here.
Mr. Atkins.
Here.
We have Katie Fina filling in for Mark Peck, Board Attorney. Ms. Sarmad, Board Planner.
Here.
Mr. Burr, Board Engineer.
Here.
You have a quorum, you can proceed.
Thank you, Ms. Probst. At this time, if there are any members of the public that wish to address the board on any matters not listed in tonight's agenda, please feel free to come forward at this time. Seeing none, hearing none, we're moving along to our application portion for the evening. First up, we have a continuance of application 25-012 PB. That's the Wine Outlet Bridgewater LLC, commonly known as 155 Promenade Boulevard. And who will be returning this evening to represent the applicant?
Is this on?
Maybe.
Just talking to it.
Okay.
There we
Good
go.
evening, Chairman. My name is Danielle Kimbach from the law firm of Prime Tuvell Maselli. My colleague Jason Tuvell was here at the last hearing, and I'm covering him for him tonight.
Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. As I said, my name is Danielle Kimbach, here on behalf of Wine Outlet Bridgewater LLC. The application before you tonight is for minor site plan approval with bulk variance relief for an application for updated signage at a retail location located at the Promenade at Bridgewater. The property that is subject to the application is known as Block 349, Lot 5 on the township tax map. The property is located in the planned retail, commercial, and public development zone district. The board will probably recall the applicant was previously here on December 2nd. After hearing comments from the board, the applicant revised its proposal. So we feel the plan that we're going to present to you tonight, that we submitted to the board, is more aesthetically pleasing than the original proposal. Additionally, it reduces the number of signs as well as the total square footage of signs for the facade. We also have an architect here tonight to present some facade improvements that we're proposing along with the signage. The ordinance permits a maximum area for facade signage of 100 square feet, or in the planning board's judgment, if the proposal will assist in a harmonious and integrated sign plan, up to 7% of the facade area. The sign we're presenting tonight is 8%. So So long as the board is in agreement that it's a harmonious and integrated plan, the variance relief we're seeking is for an additional 1% of the facade area. For the record, we did renotice for tonight's hearing. The public notice was published in the Bridgewater Courier on March 27, 2026, and mailed to all property owners within 200 feet, also on March 27, 2026. So we submit that the board has jurisdiction to hear the application. We plan to present 2 witnesses tonight in support of the application. Our first witness is our architect, Frank Coulter, and we have a professional planner, Mr. John McDonough. We're also in receipt of the board planner's April 2nd, 2026 review letter. We're prepared to testify in response to the comments received in that letter. So if it pleases the board, we'll have our first witness sworn and qualified.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kimbad. Absolutely. If you'd like to go ahead and please state your name.
My name is Frank Coulter, Blueprint Engineering. I'm a registered architect in New Jersey as well as a professional engineer in the state of New Jersey.
Ms. Fina, I believe we'll have to swear him in.
Yes, could you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And Mr. Coulter, your licenses are current and in good standing?
Yes, they are.
And have you testified before boards in New Jersey previously?
Yes, I have.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. Coulter's qualifications?
Does the board have any objections to Mr. Coulter's qualifications? None. Please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. Coulter, so did you prepare a plan for the property in question for the application tonight?
Yes.
So the first plan I'm going to bring up is the plan that was submitted prior to the hearing. The board should have in their package. This is prepared by your office, Mr. Coulter?
Yes, it was.
Okay. And Ms. Fina, I was not at the last hearing. I don't know what exhibit we left off with, but this was submitted, so when we get...
Apologize, I also was not here.
Okay. We'll come up with some nomenclature. That'll work.
This is, as far as my office is concerned, this is labeled as Concept D, CPTD.
Could you repeat that concept?
Concept D. I'm going to bring up the previous one because that gives the existing conditions as well as what was proposed. Not that one, no. That.
Mr. Chairman, can I just comment one thing here?
You have a general question, Mr. Chowdhury?
Yeah, I just wanted to see if any changes is done, if they can actually refer to the previous, submission also.
Yes, I believe he's going to present that now. So I believe the exhibit you brought up is the previous submission right there. Is that correct?
Yes, and I understand the board probably doesn't have documents they received in November and December. So this is what I believe the exhibit that was marked on December 2nd. I don't have an exhibit number. So I don't know if we want to call it like A1A or A, how do you want to designate the exhibits tonight?
Would it be easier if we just referred to it as the December 2025 submission?
Yeah, I'm not sure if this one was submitted in advance of the hearing or just presented at the hearing.
It was submitted in advance.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so this was the
That's why maybe
December
it's
2nd.
easier to just separate, at least for purposes of the hearing, we can clean it up in the record for a resolution, but just for purposes of the December 2025 versus March 2026, perhaps that's easier for the board. That's
Okay.
easier for you.
All right, so this is the December 2nd exhibit. Do you want to go through what was proposed at that time?
Sure, I can certainly. One of the biggest complaints that Raju, the owner of Wine Outlet, had come to me, it was that whenever anyone came into his store, they did not realize that the store was as large as it was. We have almost an 18,000 square foot facility, and all of his customers, when they come in and spoke to his manager, said, "Oh, we didn't realize it was so large. We thought you were just a little boutique wine outlet." So he had made the application to add the wine, beer, and spirits signage, which is what the December 2025 application had shown. after that application and hearing the comments from the board, Raju came to me and said, you know, I want the signage, but I want to be more consistent with all of the other tenants in the shopping center. Let's come up with a nicer facade that really shows that I'm a 18,000 square foot store and not just a little wine outlet. So this was what was previously proposed, and if you can bring up that one. So what we've done is,
Just real quick, so this is a new exhibit. It's similar to the plan that we submitted prior to this hearing. So we'll call this, Ms. Fina, just April 7th A1.
so what we've done is expand that and heighten his facade to actually encompass his entire demised lease space. I think he has, and I'm going from memory, so I apologize if I'm incorrect, but I think it's 78 feet 10 inches is the demised, this number here.
7910.
79 feet 10 inches. So what we've done, we created an entire facade that's more consistent with all of the other tenants. If you go to John's showing this proposed overlay.
So we'll call this exhibit April 2nd A2. It is 2 sheets.
That's the existing.
So this is the existing conditions of the surrounding facades, including the signs of the adjacent tenants and the existing sign on the wine outlet.
And then if you bring up the overlay, is page 2.
This is page 2.
This is essentially an overlay of our new design into the entire shopping center, and I hope you would agree that that is a much more consistent facade, and we don't look like a tiny little store surrounded by these large box, outlets or what have you. So it's really an improvement to the overall facade, as well as giving our store more visibility. And we feel that although we are asking for the 8%, I think on scale, you would have to agree, I would hope you would agree, that, the wine outlet signage is consistent with the other lease spaces.
And Mr. Coulter, can you describe the facade improvements that are proposed as part of the application along with the sign, and just the minor changes from the plan that was submitted and the A1 that we marked tonight?
Yes, Raju and I have gone through a couple little different, aesthetic changes. The two changes is the background behind the wine outlet was originally proposed to be a white, Arctic white James Hardie board. It is now the Navajo beige, still James Hardie board. That's kind of consistent with the beiges are consistent with the other tenants as well. And then we also changed the pilaster bases from being the split-faced CMU to be a smooth brick, which is consistent with the Burlington, and I think the store, not the Bob's, but the Marshalls. They have brick facades, and it just breaks up the elevation of the shopping center a little bit more, and gives an emphasis that, here you are at the wine outlet.
Excuse me, what is the square footage of the new sign area?
The sign area proposed is 199.1 square feet.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cutler. Have you concluded your testimony?
Yes, unless there are any questions.
Very good. At this time, we can open up to the board for any questions regarding Mr. Cutler's testimony. Before we do that, Ms. Probst, if we could just reflect for the record that Mr. Pappas is in attendance today?
I did. Mr. Pappas entered at 7:19.
Any questions?
Catherine, what's the square footage allowed?
So it's based on a proportion, so it's 5,000 square feet or 100, but at the planning board's discretion, meaning that it needs to come before this board and not necessarily for a variance, it would be 7% of the facade area, which is 173.8.
So this is still a little larger,
106.
90-something, he said.
I'm sorry, 16 square feet over, or 26 square feet over what's allowed.
Thank you.
No problem.
I will say this looks so much better than the last one. And I really like that it's not boxed in. It does make it look like the other businesses.
Thank you.
Mr. Cutler, what were some of the issues that prevented from meeting that 7% as opposed to an 8%?
Just to be more consistent with the other stores in the shopping center, we obviously, we want to be, have the same visual appearance as the other tenants, and I think that the 8%, it just gave us a little bit more pop and made us more consistent with the other tenants.
Mr. Pappas?
The comparison between your sign and the square footage of the facade of your client's store versus the others?
I do not have that in front of me, but I do know that they varied
Who
throughout.
would have that?
I think our planner has that information when he testifies.
Okay.
Thank you.
He will testify to that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Cutler? Mr. Banga?
Just regarding the windows, are those actual windows or are they facade, like the,
The entrance is on my far right. That is an existing sliding door entrance. The center windows are existing, and we are proposing to install the two additional windows on the left.
on the left side?
Right.
And then is there anything protruding? Like I see there's two pillars, it looks like. Are those decorative or are those actually coming out similar? to
Those
the others?
protrude about 6 to 8 inches.
Oh, but nothing that would go to
Nothing-
like the
no,
sidewalk or
Over
something?
top the existing doorway, there is about a 2-foot MAPES canopy. What we're proposing to do is do kind of a black trim line to emulate that in a brake metal, to emulate that canopy, but it will only stick out as far as the pilasters.
And that would be 6 to 8 inches?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? How about from our professionals?
Thank you. Those windows that you can see into the store. They're not just faux, facade, right?
Correct.
I would just make a recommendation to the board as a condition of any approval, if this application is approved, that no additional window signage be added or be allowed. It can add to clutter, it can add to kind of a degradation of the shopping center. So I would just make that recommendation.
Ms. Fina, could we make that a condition of approval?
Yes. And then I think that the witness has covered most of the questions in the joint review memo. I think it's really just a matter of the planner testifying to the relief and providing additional commentary on why they're seeking it.
I had one question. The last meeting, I think there were signs on this side of the building and the rear. And what, is this proposed to just have one sign on this side of the building, front?
There is an existing sign on the rear. We're not proposing to change that at all.
Yeah, at the last meeting, there was a proposal for a new sign at the rear. There's nothing changing at the rear with the application now.
And that came up because of the number of signs. So at the time, the existing sign that was on the storefront was there. The existing sign on the back was there in conformance. And there's a provision in the ordinance that for shopping centers with stores over 5,000 square feet, they're limited to the 3. And then the additional sign they were adding was still in conformance, but we were just noting that there were 3 signs. The rear sign is permitted on its own as 100 square feet, up to 100 square feet. I believe it is conforming, or it exists there. It's not part of really this proposal, I guess.
Is the sign to the rear within conformance of the ordinance?
My planner's saying yes. I don't have those dimensions, but nothing's being altered, so I imagine it was previously approved at some point.
So would we need to make that a condition of approval, that any additional signage that exists would remain in conformance with the ordinance? I mean, is that necessary or not?
No, if they did want to expand anything on the rear, they'd have to come before the board for a number of signs, et cetera. So what exists there, as long as it's remaining, that can be captured, I think, in the record, that there is an existing sign and it's not changing. And that will make sure that they would need further board approval if they did want to change it.
Thank you.
I noticed the older sign has a slightly different graphic at this point. Will there be any changes in the future proposed to that sign in the rear? given that the graphics changed a little bit?
Yeah, no plan right now to change the rear sign.
Okay, and should there be, they would have to come before the board again at that time. Is that correct?
I think if we needed a variance, we would have to come back. I mean, if we just wanted to alter and it conformed, I assume you have a sign permit process, but anything that wouldn't conform would have to come back.
Mr. Burr, any questions?
Just one question, Mr. Chairman. So the updated exhibit that we have tonight is for just under 200 square feet.
That's correct.
And when you were before the board, I may have missed this, but when you were before the board in December, can you just remind us what was being proposed at that time in terms of the square footage?
That
237.
237? And it was similar in design to this current one, or it's been completely?
If we,
Yeah, here, this is the proposal from December.
Okay.
So
Okay,
those
so it's,
two signs, not counting the banner signs, totaled about 237 square feet, and it was two separate signs.
very good. Thank you.
Any other questions from the members of the board? This time, I'd like to invite any members of the public that have any questions directed at Mr. Cutler's testimony. Please feel free to come over at this time. None in the audience. That'll close the public portion for this witness. Thank you, Mr. Cutler.
thank you, board.
Thank you, Chairman. My next and final witness is our professional planner, Mr. John McDonough.
Could you spell your last name for me?
It's John McDonough, MC, capital D-O-N-O-U-G-H. Project planner.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Mr. McDonough, can you provide the board with your professional and educational background?
Sure. Licensed professional planner here in the state of New Jersey. That license is current. It's in good standing. I actually have been here in front of this board before. Sorry about that. Much better? Okay. Again, for the record, John McDonough, M-C-D-O-N-O-U-G-H, project planner, licensed planner, state of New Jersey, current, in good standing, nationally certified AICP. I testify throughout the state on a nightly basis, and I've been here before.
Does the board have any questions of Mr. McDonough's qualifications?
Does the board have any objections to Mr. McDonough's qualifications? None, please proceed.
Thank you. Mr. McDonough, so we marked this exhibit to assist in the architect's testimony, but if you want to describe for the board the exhibit you prepared for tonight, which we're calling the April 7th A2.
Sure thing. Basically, what I did was put together a before and after of what the center looks like now, or as close to real time as I can get. We were here back in December. We flew the drone over the center. If I were sitting where the board were sitting, I would want to know how this sign package is going to look with the entirety of the facade. You've got the architectural visual, and so that's why I put together a visual that shows how it integrates with the rest of the center. So you have basically what's a before and then an after. I took the elevation that the architect put together and it fit nicely within the confines of what we had shown. I think the visual is very strong, that the applicant has achieved positive integration here and significant movement from where we were back in December. My compliments to the board. I wasn't here in December, but we all know our Supreme Court says that the land use process is supposed to be an interactive process where you, with the local knowledge, makes input to an applicant who's making an application. And the hope is that the end result is a positive end result, or taking a good plan and making it better. And I think visually that is clearly what has happened here. I don't know who it was on the board that made the comment about integrating the full facade, but I think that was a great touch here, and clearly a drastic difference over where we had started before. Several niceties here with the application. Number one, the unifying element. There is a sign up there right now, if you want to flip back to the existing. And you can see we've got the wine outlet, the brand is there, and the applicant was proposing the tagline over there. So you would actually have two separate signs. Based on this integration, the applicant's going to move both in a more logical fashion, consistent with what we see in the rest of the center, where you've got the brand on the top and then the tagline on the bottom. Burlington's got that. Bob's has that as well. So very common with retail signage, and this is going to present a much better image in the public realm than what we had seen before. Not only the unifying of the sign itself and the copy of the sign, but also the better integration of the facade, more in balance and proportion with the other facades, the other storefronts that we see. And then overall greater proportionality in terms of the overall center and how the sign package integrates within that storefront. So we'll use this visual as strong evidence to show that the applicant is achieving good harmony here with the overall center, notwithstanding the relief that the applicant is seeking. The actual relief here from the PR CPD zone, your planned retail zone, is to have signage that exceeds 100 square feet. We're at 199, as you just heard, a substantial reduction over that which was previously there. So again, another positive. We see that the benefit here of clear and safe site identification, complementary signage, positive visual environment, substantially outweighing any detriment with the package. The actual relief, again, 199 versus the 100. Actually, an uptick over your 7% control, which you just heard from Catherine. We're at 8%. So I think the board can give some deference there as well. Also, the sign in the back, again, is consistent with the ordinance overall. It's less than 100 square feet. It's about 79 square feet, and it's there. It's really a validation of that which is there. All said, I think that this has landed at a good spot where the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh any detriments. Visually and functionally repurposing what was vacant space, Bed Bath & Beyond was there, putting this back to functional use and signage that is appropriate and reasonable is a good basis for relief. That's really all I have on direct.
And Mr. McDonough, did you hear the board member's question about
Yes.
on the size of adjacent signs?
Yes, so I think we can turn right to the Bob's, which if you can see it's got the word Bob's Discount Furniture and then the tagline of mattresses. Actually comes out to about 9% of the total facade. We're looking for relief at 8%, so we're actually less than what you see over at Bob's. The others appear to comply with the requirement of that 7%, but we do have an uptick on the unit immediately adjacent.
Does that conclude your testimony, Mr. McDonough?
It does.
Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to open it up to any members of the board that have any questions for Mr. McDonough.
Sure, I can ask. The proposed signs color palette and the contrast levels used, it looks like it's a little different from the previous one. So have we looked at how it would perform with people with slight color blindness or reduced color perception, people with like yellow, green, or red, blue deficiencies?
I have not reviewed this from a color blindness standpoint, no.
Okay. Yeah, most of the colors seem like, it's similar to Bob's. It's just the yellow that I see there. If you've, tested it out on just the general population, around 10% might have color blindness.
Maybe the architect has a...
Okay.
You can speak. You're still under oath.
We have used this color palette on other stores,
Okay.
other wine outlet stores. We have not done an investigation as to, for the color blindness as you suggest. But if the board pleases, we are open to another, a different color palette if, the board would require that.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds to me like this is brand familiarity, meeting customer expectations, similar to the Burlington with the red background. It's what a customer expects to see and helps identify this brand.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yes, I just want, first of all, this is a really great improvement. Looks like I even wanted to get a drink here, even though I don't drink. So, on the windows, if following up Mr. Banga's questions, it does looks like it is coming out. It doesn't come out, it's just a facade, right? All the front windows.
Correct. It is just a facade. As I mentioned earlier, over top of the storefront on the far right, where the entrance to the store is, it's actually about a 2-foot wide flat canopy. What we're proposing is to create a trim strip the same height, but it will only extend out as far as the pilasters do. Obviously, you have to cover them above. You have to have some kind of rain coverage on them. So it would extend out about 6 to 8 inches. We haven't done the full design at this point, but that's what I'm expecting.
So it does not increase the usable square feet at all?
No, it does not.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Magura?
No question, no.
Thank you. Ms. Sarmed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have no real questions. I think Mr. McDonough has covered the necessary proofs for the relief sought. And I think that, between both witnesses' testimony, they've covered both the explanation of the changes from the last plan and what's proposed, and also provided the proofs necessary for the relief sought from this board.
Board Engineer, Mr. Burr, any questions?
No questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. This time, I'd like to have any members of the public that'd like to question Mr. McDonough. Seeing none, that'll close the public portion for this witness. I'd like to comment as well. Actually, I'm actually very proud of the board for the work that it did back in December as well. With Mr. Tavel present, I think the board did push back on the design quite a bit, and I think this is a perfect example of exactly why the board is here in Bridgewater doing its job. We're not marketing experts. We don't understand your brand or the awareness of it, but we do understand exactly the way that it was proposed. And I think there were questions regarding the parapet. There were questions regarding what things would look like when the trees were in full bloom. And a lot of those things were taken into consideration because we're here members of and residents of this town. And this, I think, this exhibit crowns the center a lot more appropriately. So again, thank you to all the members of the board. This is a perfect example of how a job is well done. So thank you. Okay, Ms. Kimbat, if there are no other questions, would you like to close it out?
Sure, I really don't have anything further. I think Mr. McDonough summarized, the benefits of the application. Thank you for your kind comments. We really took your comments back, and I think we came up with a great design that's an aesthetic improvement that really fits in with the shopping center, despite the slight deviation based on our floor area. And we can agree to Mrs. Sarmad's condition that there would be no additional window signs. So with that, we are requesting the board approve the application.
Thank you, Ms. Kimbed. Ms. Pina, have we satisfied all conditions and requests?
Yes, you have.
Very good. This time I'll need a motion to approve the application with the conditions set forth. That's Mr. Banga. I'll take a second. That's Ms. Sikora. Ms. Probst, could I have a roll call, please?
Chairman Vessio,
Yes.
Mr. Bongiorno,
Yes.
Councilwoman Isla,
Yes.
Mr. Magora,
Yes.
Mr. Pappas, Mr. Wang,
Yes.
Ms. Sikora,
Yes.
Mr. Banga,
Yes.
Ms. Chartowich,
Yes.
Mr. Chowdhury,
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations. Moving along to our next application this evening. That's 2519 PB, Whitney Drive Urban Renewal LLC, Block 511, Lot 3, commonly known as Whitney Court East. Good evening. Who will be representing Whitney Court East this evening?
Good evening, John Sullivan. I'm an attorney with the offices of Bastola and Sullivan, representing this applicant.
Good evening, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, if I may, just by a brief introduction. I'm going to talk first a little bit about the applicant. They are Whitney Drive Urban Renewal LLC. They have affiliated companies, of course, who have a fair amount of experience in, well, a little bit of experience in developing these type of properties, but a lot of experience in the ownership and operation of these type of properties. It is the contract purchaser of this particular piece of property. My client is under contract to buy the property from the Township of Bridgewater, which is the current owner. What we are proposing is a supportive housing development here. So before I get into that, the property is located on Whitney Drive East. It is the R10A zone, and we have an interior vacant lot. It is designated as Lot 3 in Block 511, and it's approximately 12,500 square feet. As I mentioned, our proposal is to construct a 5-unit supportive housing home. This is a conditional use in the R10A zone, and I believe that our proposal satisfies all the conditions of the ordinance, including your affordable housing requirements. I noticed on the board up here it does say we are requesting preliminary and final site plan approval, which is correct. It also mentions a D variance and bulk variance. That may have been true with our initial reiteration of the plans, but at this point, we do not require any further variances. Okay. What we have submitted in connection with the application is the site plan, which was originally dated October 29th of 2025, last revised December 29th of 2025, prepared by Mid-Atlantic Engineering. We also submitted the stormwater management report dated October 27th of 2025, also prepared by Mid-Atlantic Engineering. We submitted architectural plans prepared by Thriven Design, which are dated September 4th of 2025, and we submitted the property survey prepared by Mid-Atlantic Engineering, dated October 16th of 2025. Our witnesses tonight are Marcus Kellum. He's sitting to my left. He is a representative of the applicant. We also have our architect, Stephen Schatz, and our engineer, Ian Burton. So if I may, if we could have Mr. Kellum sworn in, we would begin with Mr. Kellum.
Spell your last name, please.
Kellam.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the board. My name is Marcus Kellum. I'm here on behalf of CCC Housing and Whitney Drive Urban Renewal LLC, which is a subsidiary of our organization. CCC Housing is a nonprofit organization. We have been in the communities of Middlesex, Ocean, Monmouth County primarily since 1979, and we own 27 residential properties, 1 commercial property, about 22,000 square feet that houses our administrative offices in North Brunswick. We created this entity, Whitney Drive Urban Renewal LLC, in order to acquire this property from the township to be able to develop affordable housing and supportive housing. That's been our niche market for our entire existence since '79. And what we do is we provide both innovative supportive services for individuals and families with special needs, as well as actually doing the development. We are a developer as well. And in terms of those services, that can be anything from providing financial literacy to an individual and family who needs it, to connecting them with resources, all the way up into and through more intensive mental health services for those individuals and or families. We do serve multiple populations. We started off as a mental health provider, primarily in terms of supportive services. We have more recently, over the last 7 years, utilizing the National Housing Trust Fund through the Department of Community Affairs in terms of development, have expanded our population to work with deaf, hard of hearing, late deaf, and deaf blind, which is the proposed population to work with here. We've also worked with domestic violence survivors, veterans, as well as individuals and families who are homeless and chronically homeless. This property will be maintained and managed by our own team. We do have a management team of property manager as well as a maintenance team of 3 that support all of our properties across 4 counties. And again, we're going to be working with deaf, hard of hearing, late deaf, and deaf blind through a partnership with New Jersey Deaf Housing. It's another nonprofit that has been doing advocacy work for this population for about 20 years to provide housing specifically to that population who's really interested in having more of a congregate housing. So you'll see some design elements in the property that offer space for them to have the opportunity to congregate and to support that their kind of ASL learning and work that they want to do. We will be complying with all these units in terms of the New Jersey Fair Housing Act. As John mentioned, this will provide the township with credits towards their fair share housing obligation of 5 units, plus because we're working with special needs, it'll give a bonus credit, so you'll actually get 10 credits, which is a win-win for both us and the township. We will utilize RehabCo, which is the township's administrative agent, to support and actually certifying rents, as well as the tenants who are moving into these properties, into these units as well. We do propose to potentially look at 2 potential sources. As I noted, formerly we have been using the National Housing Trust Fund through the Department of Community Affairs primarily for our most recent developments over the last 7 years. We are the one of the most using of that particular source. We've actually received about 8 grants through the DCA and roughly about $8 million in funding to create 18 units of affordable housing. And that particular program does come with 2 really good opportunities. One is the capital funding to do acquisition, or in this case, new construction, as well as a project-based voucher to make it affordable for individuals and families earning below 30% of area median income, which for this area is, for a family of 1 is a little over $32,000, and for a family of 4 is just around $46,000. So that's one of the potential funding sources that we're looking at to work with, and we're very familiar with the staff in that particular office. The Department of Community Affairs also has a program called the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, which you may be familiar with, that we are also identifying as a potential source. One good thing about that particular source is that the governor's budget, Governor Sherrill's budget for this year proposes to put about $100 million into that fund, so it'll be more fully funded than it has been in previous administrations. And that particular source, the opportunity there is to work with maybe higher income individuals and families moving into the property, because we can serve people between 50% and 80% of area median income. So that's anyone from a family of 1 with income of about $53,000 to a family of 4 and 80% of about $104,000. So there's an opportunity to serve a larger population and not just fully extremely low income individuals and families. We do expect to have applications ready for this, assuming that we get planning board approval today, and submit it before or by July 1. If not, we would be submitting those after July 1, because the cycle of DCA's grants start again on July 1. We would be submitting for those applications and expect that we would have a good review process and quick turnaround. And in terms of how we work with all of these funding sources, we would be executing a note, mortgage, and deed restriction attached to the property to ensure that the property is maintained as affordable housing into the future.
Okay, didn't leave me much left to ask you. I just want to go a little project specific here.
Yes.
As I mentioned, this is going to be a 5-unit supporting housing project for the site.
That's correct.
And in terms of the residents, I think you had mentioned that you're considering for this one a particular type of disability, which would be deaf or hard of hearing?
Yes, so that's by DCA and all the different programs, even HMFA, they recognize that as a physical disability. There's approximately 9 populations that we could work with that are considered special needs.
Right. And I understand, from your basic knowledge that there is a need for this particular housing for this particular disability. I understand there's a waiting list.
Yes, we do have a waiting list already of individuals, single individuals, a number of seniors actually, as well as families that are looking for 2 bedrooms. The population in terms of the unit mix are 1 and 2 bedroom apartments.
Yeah, so the unit sizes, or the unit number of bedrooms anyway, do vary here. So it could be a single individual in one unit, whereas a small family in another unit.
That's correct, yes.
And I know there's a community room proposed as part of this. I understand there will be some services that will be provided to the residents as opposed to, towards their disability as opposed to general maintenance and things like that. Can you briefly describe what those services would be?
Sure. So as I noted, Triple C has been doing supportive services or innovative supportive services for our entire existence. And so those services can go anywhere from financial literacy, supporting individuals who may need some support with credit, or getting folks sometimes that are from homeless situations, so we understand they have credit issues, so we're working with them through some of that. We do also provide, again, more intensive services around mental health issues. We will also work on various other opportunities, vocational opportunities, educational opportunities, some fun activities as well, just to kind of build a sense of community amongst the residents there. We will also be providing translation services in terms of ASL, so we'll either have an interpreter or if we're actually in a process of trying to recruit a staff member that would be a services coordinator that does ASL that can help support them. We do have another property in Highland Park that we developed for this population as well, which was one of the first of its kind for this state.
And I understand management will provide all maintenance services for the property, is that correct?
Yes, so we have a property manager, and we have 3 facilities technicians that do take care of all of our properties. We do have some specialized services that we do farm out, obviously, to a vendor for HVAC and some of the more specialized services that are needed that we would like to have warranties for their work, but otherwise we do handle all of our maintenance in-house.
And how are we going to handle refuse? I know we're showing on the plans that there's a refuse container. It's not going to be a dumpster. It's going to be individual cans within that refuse area for both garbage and recycle. So how are we going to handle that in terms of getting that out to the street? Is that going to be something the residents do, or is management going to?
So that's actually something that our services team will work with the tenants on, and they actually create a schedule, and each tenant is responsible for supporting the removal of the refuse to the street based on our schedule with whatever vendor. We have a number of shared housing properties as well as group homes, and we have some larger units with 10 units that actually do the same thing. So we have a very specific schedule that each particular tenant has the opportunity to participate in that schedule.
And one of the board reports had, or one of the professional reports had mentioned a question about snow removal and where we would store snow after the lot's been plowed. Can you address that?
Yes, so we do have a vendor that does all of our snow removal as well as our landscaping during the landscaping season. If there's a need to remove snow from the site, they will bring a vehicle to actually remove it from the site, and we'll dump it appropriately from that perspective.
And can you address what type of building security there will be?
So we are looking at one alarm system, obviously, to maintain security. My apologies. That is, my daughters are supposed to be going to sleep now, so my apologies. But we will have security, and from that perspective, we do try and work through challenges that may come up and arise. If we need to, we will hire someone to support that in terms of a security guard that might be on site if needed. We haven't really seen that as a need for most of our properties at this point. We're able to work with our services team to support any particular security related needs. But generally speaking, if we need to, we have also installed cameras on all of our exterior exterior portions of the common spaces to ensure security is available.
And then entry into the building from the exterior, is that going to be governed by key or keypad?
So usually we use I think it's called U-lock. It's a keypad that each tenant will be given either a key fob or they will have a code specific to their unit, if you will, to enter the property, and then they will have a key to their actual door to their unit.
And there was also a question about the playground. Is that something that is going to be immediately installed, or is that kind of a placeholder?
That's a placeholder for a future based on the actual tenants that we do receive. So we want to be able to provide an opportunity for families that may have small children to have space for their children to play at. We work with a number of larger developers across the state of New Jersey, and we find that when there's not opportunities for the kids to have play space outside on site, it can become an issue, especially during the summers. So we want to make sure we have a placeholder just in case. We do have some small children that we want to make sure they can stay occupied and that there's no issues in the future.
And are we proposing any signage?
No signage at this moment. It just would be the normal house numbers that are consistent with zoning and local requirements.
And overall, you made efforts to design this to look somewhat like a single-family home from the exterior, right?
Yes, our architect is very familiar with the supportive housing space, and we've done another property with him, and they've really focused on trying to design properties that fit into the fabric of the existing neighborhood. We like to say we like to have the nicest looking property on the block. And so that's really important to us in terms of ensuring that our properties and our families and our consumers are able to be part of the community.
Yeah, that's all I have for Mr. Kellum.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kellum. At this time, I'd like to open up to the board for any questions regarding the testimony just heard. Mr. Chowdhury.
Are these rentals or sales?
I've got Mr. It's okay. I've got Mr. Chowdhury here first. Got his hand up a little quicker. Yep.
Total square feet of the building will be?
I think we can have our architect address that.
Okay, no problem.
Yep.
You already mentioned that there will be a site manager there, but not the technician, because you have technicians in other properties, they will share with you.
Yeah, so our property manager floats across all of our properties. We have properties in Monmouth, Ocean, Middlesex, and we have one property in Camden County that we manage. So they float between all the properties in terms of the management piece, and then we have a facilities team that covers all of our properties, so they also float.
Okay, so how many residents, total residents you are expecting to live there?
This is a 5-unit building, so I would say minimum for a 2-bedroom is 2 families, or a two-person family. So we're probably looking at between 6 to 8 residents, but I can't speak for the actual families at this point.
1 bedroom will be for 2 persons?
No more than 2 people, yep.
Okay, and 2 bedroom will be maybe 3 or 4?
Could be. Based on requirements, we can't go over 4 people for those, but it's really based on the composition of the family. So depending on the number of children, their ages and genders would determine whether or not they could qualify.
I know you are basically focusing on deaf or hard of hearing communities, but do you have, you also have a handicap accessibility for all the first floor unit, looks like.
That's correct.
Do you have a handicap capability for the second floor?
In terms of the current project design, no.
Okay, but can it be developed in future?
The architect will address that in his comments.
Thank you. Do you have any plan for a fire hydrant nearby?
Our engineer will address that.
Okay. For now, I'm done. I'll ask them again.
Thank you. Mr. Bongiorno.
Are these rentals or sales?
Rentals.
Rentals.
Yes.
I have a question. Catherine, if you can help me out here. I'm looking at the impervious coverage and the maximum floor, the FAR, and for the 10A, These seem to be a little high.
So I apologize, on my review memo, the calculations that I put in for the coverage were input incorrectly, so they don't match up what's in the site plan. Or the site plan, rather, didn't include calculations, it only included the percentage. I forgot to go back because those are one was based off of the 12,500, but because of the hillside development, it actually is a little lower. So the 60% should be 7,265, and the 59.99 should be 7,264. The calculations for floor area ratio should be correct. These are, the R10A zone requires but not this property because it's under the conditional standards, requires 10,000 square feet. This property is about 12,500, so that's why that might seem a little high. But hopefully those corrections helped out.
I'm sorry, so for this particular zone, what is the maximum impervious coverage?
So for the R10A zone, it normally is 35%. Within the R10A zone, it allows supportive housing as a conditional use, which allows up to 60% and an FAR of 0.6. So specifically for supportive housing, outside of the bulk standards generally for the zone, this use permits a little bit different standards.
Cleared it up for me. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Mr. Chairman, just to follow up on Mr. Bongiorno's, so I think I saw 7387 somewhere, and Catherine, I believe you just mentioned 7265. So is it exceeding the percentage? And it's not in compliance?
I don't believe it's exceeding. Again, what was provided in the zoning table was only, in the zoning table on the site plan, was only the percentage, not the actual breakdown of the coverage. So the number that I put in my review memo is an estimate based off of the lot area. I don't think, they didn't identify a variance, and I didn't see anywhere that they were exceeding it based on the percentages provided. But again, what I provided is not necessarily bond, it's really just an estimate to give you an idea of where they stand in relation as a percentage, because a percentage doesn't give you any idea of what it actually is, right? So it's just a calculation I did, happened to do it incorrectly, which I apologize for, but it is an estimate.
Thank you, Mr. Banga. Mr. Pappas.
Could either Mr. Sullivan or Mr. Kellogg clarify how you're acquiring this property? Because I think you said acquire, and I'd like you to define that so it's clear.
Yes, the applicant is under contract to purchase the property from the Township of Bridgewater. Bridgewater has been the owner of this property, if I recall from the title, for a couple of decades, I think. And the property, as far as I know, has been vacant as far as we can recall.
Could you define acquire?
Under contract to purchase it.
Provide the details.
I'm sorry, the contract details?
Yeah, I'm providing, I know the answer to my question, and I want you to have it put it on the record.
Sure, I can do that. The contract provides for the purchase of the property for $100. There is no contingencies for mortgage financing. There was a due diligence contingency, which has been deemed satisfied by the applicant, so they are prepared to move forward with the purchase of the property. Closing to occur 30 days after we obtain, I did say no financing contingency, but I'm going to correct myself. Closing to occur 30 days after we obtain the approvals for this project, as well as the financing through the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs Affordable Housing Trust Fund or similar DCA housing program in order to allow us to have the funds to construct the project. And I think that's about it, other than your standard real estate contract term.
Thank you. Could you also outline any financial assistance that you're receiving from the township for this project? As you talked about, and your client talked about the funding that is being pursued from other levels of government.
Right. So, the contract calls for funding in the amount of $1.45 million, that our client would obtain through community affairs and/or private financing. There is some language that says if there is a shortfall in funding, the township would donate a maximum of $30,000 per unit, not to exceed $150,000 toward the construction of the project.
Thank you. Ms. Sarmad, could you describe, just so the board is reminded, how this property fits into the affordable housing plan for the township?
Sure. Thank you. This project is contributing 5 affordable units towards the township's fourth round obligation, so it is an important piece. I don't have it off the top of my head, but I assume based on the type of units that it probably does also get bonus credits at a 2-for-1, meaning that it actually counts for up to 10 credits towards the plan, so it is a significant part of it. And yes, so it is.
This is part of the housing plan that has been approved this past year, correct? This
Yes,
property,
I don't
this
think we've
project.
gotten our compliance certification yet, but practically from the orders from the judge, the plan has been blessed essentially.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pavis. Thank you, Ms. Sarman. Mr. Kell, just a few quick preliminary questions. You mentioned that there were activities and services that are provided on site. I believe we've talked about this a few times already. The primary tenant would be deaf and hard of hearing. What are some of those activities that you mentioned there that would be entertained in that community room?
Yes.
And how often per week would they take place?
So our typical services plan calls for about 3 activities per month, and that could be a combination of things from doing activity for the children, again, just based on the actual tenants. It could be an activity that's around a holiday that's going on. It could also be like financial literacy, which we have a number of banking partners that could come in and help support doing some financial literacy. We have programs in-house that we also, our services team might present in terms of how to do, be a better parent, how to deal with some of the challenges in the neighborhood or in the community that may be going on. And it just really depends on the needs of the actual tenants themselves. So we try to do a needs assessment kind of at admission to understand the actual needs of each particular family, and we build off of that in terms of creating a plan to support their needs.
Given the type of disability that's being discussed, what type of, or how long do these people require supervision for during the week? Is there supervision that lives in-house with these people, or do they visit as needed?
No, so these aren't supervised units. We provide services as needed. We do build a plan essentially on a monthly basis to be able to provide those programs and services that could support whatever their needs might be. But these are not 24-hour supervised. These aren't group homes, which we own a number of. We also have a number of semi-supervised properties where we're on site several times a week to help support the needs of an individual person based on their specific need. But this is kind of as needed. At least 3 times a month, we're going to be doing some type of activity to support their needs.
You mentioned there would be some security features on site. At risk of not being insensitive, given the fact that they are deaf and hard of hearing, in the event of a fire, what type of alarms or enhanced alarms would there be if there's not the ability to hear an audible alarm?
Yeah, our architect will talk about that in terms of the deaf space design standards that we've looked at.
Perfect, okay. And I think I might also have another question for him as well. Is there a basement proposed for this facility?
No.
No basement, okay. And lastly, are there any future plans for any additional coverage such as a patio?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, do any of your sites typically enhance the coverage once the structures are built?
No.
Okay. That's all I have for now. Does any?
Who conducts the needs assessment?
We have a services team of clinicians. So licensed clinicians will actually do the assessment at intake. They do a comprehensive.
Social workers?
I'm sorry?
Social workers?
So we do have some that have a social work background, some that also have a psychiatric mental health background. So it just depends on the need of that particular consumer. They'll do a comprehensive needs assessment before they actually move in to understand the actual needs, and then we'll create a what we call IRP, individual recovery plan, to help support those needs and their goals. Every 90 days, they're updating that to ensure that they're meeting wherever those goals might be. To eventually, the goal is obviously for them to become full-fledged members of the community. So, the goal is for them to eventually transition off of whatever that full package of services might be in the moment of their need, so that we're just coming out a couple times a month to provide the services I've mentioned. So it really depends on the actual family themselves and their needs.
Do they have to pay for these services?
They do not.
Thank you.
Any questions from this side of the dais? Mr. Banya?
Just one question. How long are the rentals typically? Are they one-year rentals? Are they multi-year rentals? What does that typically look like for your?
So we have a one-year lease that's either automatically renewed, or it depends on the need of the family. They may move out sooner or later, but our average tenancy is about 6 years right now for tenants.
And then regarding the disability, is it the primary caregiver or the primary customer in this case?
Head of household. Head of household has to be deemed as having the physical disability.
So not the children or?
No, yeah.
Okay.
In terms of our funding source, it requires that the head of household has the disability. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so I'll leave some of the site plan integration question for the, I think, architect or later on. But in terms of all the mental health support that you mentioned, if there's a lot of people that will be living here, regardless of their communication barrier, like, do they have access, if they can't call 988, will they be able to have access to chat-based or video-based communication systems when they need that mental health support?
Okay. So in terms of us working, again, we have a property in Highland Park that we work with this population. Most of them have a service that's provided through the state where they're able to do video-based conferencing, if you will, on their phone to get that support. We typically also, from a security perspective, actually install camera-based or some type of video doorbell, so there's some level of security from that perspective. In terms of our services, we would use that video service. Again, one of the things that we're looking at right now is actually hiring somebody who has ASL to support them from that perspective, so that the person on site doesn't necessarily need any devices to help support the communication necessary.
Okay, great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else? How about from our professionals?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions. So, Mr. Kellum, you mentioned, I think, CCC. I think you mentioned you guys own or maintain 26 or 27 residential stock?
27 residential properties, yes, that's correct.
And where is the closest one to this site?
That is a good question. I am not a New Jersey guy, so...
Probably Highland Park.
Piscataway. We have 2 properties in Piscataway, yes.
Okay. And you mentioned one in Highland Park. Is that the other facility that's for
this particular
hearing
property?
impaired
That's
individuals?
correct. That's correct, yes.
That's the only other one under your umbrella?
Yes, we just developed that one earlier. Last year we started the development process. We had tenants start moving in December 30th.
Okay. And you had mentioned you already have a wait list for prospective applicants for this property. How does that process work? How does somebody get selected?
So in terms of the waiting list, we have a partnership with New Jersey Deaf Housing. As I mentioned earlier, They are a advocacy agency for this particular population in terms of finding housing and specifically congregate housing to help support their needs for communication. And they are actually the one that are pre-vetting applicants, understanding their, making sure that they're getting verification disability, going through that process with them, making sure they're working with whatever licensed professional to get that documentation. And then we just have our general process for admission, which goes through a needs assessment, but also on the property management side, we go through background check, screening, we have an interview, we do a site visit to ensure that they enjoy the particular location, they accept it, and then we have to do a number of subsidy-related paperwork that gets submitted to the state for them to go through their process in order to get subsidy if it's specifically for like National Housing Trust Fund. Because they're 30% of AMI, they do have to verify income. They also have to verify the disability at the state level and approve it. And then there's a number of other hoops that we have to jump through for the project-based voucher to ensure that it's affordable for them.
Okay, very good. And you had mentioned in response to a couple of questions, you talked a little bit about some of the services that are offered in that community room. Are those services just for the tenants of this building? Would outside people be allowed to come in and participate in any of those services, or is it strictly for the tenants of this building?
So that's strictly for the tenants of the building. I don't think we would be apprehensive to working with other folks in the community who may have a similar need. We've done that before in some of our properties that have community space. We work very closely with Penrose and Edison. They have a development that has 172 units, and we do provide services to everyone in the building, to all 172 units. And frequently, those residents will have family members from outside the community that will help to support them as well during some of our programs and activities.
And when we talked about security, you had mentioned that there's either a keypad or a key fob entrance, and then individual keys for the individual units.
Yes.
So the main entrance to this building, of which I think there's just one, we'll hear from the architect, but that main entrance is locked at all times.
Yes.
Correct?
Yep.
And then the tenant, via the fob or the keypad, has to key in. And then there's a second level of security with their individual doors, assuming they...
That's correct. Yes, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
And we do have electronic access to the key fob, or again, a keypad that's at the front door, so we can understand if there's someone using that. Again, if we have cameras, we'll be able to see whether somebody's using the wrong code or someone's using the wrong code, and they're not an actual tenant of the property.
And from a maintenance perspective, you had mentioned that you guys have a property manager and a facilities team that on a daily basis is touring or stopping by all the facilities. Is it safe to assume that every day somebody from your team will be stopping into this particular facility, or is it not necessarily on a daily basis, maybe a weekly basis somebody may come through?
I wouldn't say it's on a daily basis. It's really based on, so we do two things. One, we do quarterly inspections of all of our units, and then we have a maintenance contact center that will provide the tenants with the opportunity to put in work orders if there's an issue on the site, and then our team goes out and they're working those work orders daily. So it just depends on if there's any issues that do come up at the site that would require someone to be out there. Otherwise, you're more likely to see a member of our services team coming out to help support those individuals, not necessarily the maintenance team.
And in the event that there is an emergency, somebody loses heat or something like that, and they need to reach out to one of your team members in the middle of the night.
Our maintenance contact center is available 24/7.
24/7?
To all of our
How
tenants.
is it set up with your Highland Park property with the hearing impaired individual? How do they communicate with your team? Is it like a text message exchange or an email? How does
So
that work?
most of those tenants are texting or emailing. We also have on-call facilities technician 24/7, 365. So there's always someone available from our team to help support in terms of maintenance needs or an emergency. We also have, we tend to work with the local emergency services, so they have our contact information as well, which we will provide to them so that we can address any particular issues that may come up after hours or during normal business hours.
Very good. Thank you.
Mr. Pappas.
You caused me to think of years ago, I had been a student of sign language, and I it's a long time ago, and the relay service was in existence then. You familiar with that? Is that still in existence that allows a hearing impaired person to, in a sense, be able to communicate with someone on a conventional phone?
So as I mentioned earlier, many of the tenants that we work with now have a service through the state, and it's a video conferencing through their phone, so they're able to sign right on their phone, and it calls us, and we get the call, and they're actually translating over the phone, so we're able to communicate with them that way. A number of them also send us emails. So our property manager he's not technically on call, but myself and him, we both pretty much are 24/7. Whenever someone needs us, we're there.
And what's your position in the
I'm
organization?
the director of community engagement and development, part of our exec team.
Just following up, Mr. Burr, the maintenance, exterior maintenance, I'm assuming someone on your staff or you have a vendor that takes care of landscaping?
Yes, we have a vendor that takes care of our landscaping as well as all of our snow removal.
Okay. And then just a follow-up question about the vetting process. You said you have a waiting list, and I think you or Mr. Sullivan talked about that Rehabco, the township's administrative agent, also, I'm assuming, is going to be involved in this process, correct?
Yes, we would work with them very closely to make sure that tenants are actually qualified for the units.
So because of the unique nature of the clients, how is that coordinated? Because Rehabco conducts the financial eligibility, and you have another layer, so I assume, is your vetting does that take place first?
We would probably work with both kind of in tandem, and we would provide the support if needed in terms of translation services.
And then I think about the community room and the services, you mentioned that the services are primarily to be provided to the residents, but that there could be others. I guess a concern that I would have if this is expanded to services to non-residents is it's a small property. It's a dead-end street. There is limited parking.
Yep.
And I'm concerned about this potentially being expanded to allow non-residents to participate, because how is that going to be addressed from a vehicular parking and so forth? So could you address that? Because I think we may consider a condition on that.
No, and I completely understand the concern. The reality is that this particular population likes to have congregate housing. They want to be together. And so working with our partner, New Jersey Dep Housing, there could be an opportunity for us to have some of their constituents that are in the area to be able to kind of provide that opportunity for community. I would say the other part of this that we would be interested in doing is maybe working with the township to maybe if there's some community space within the community where we could do something a little bit larger to bring that community together. That would be an opportunity. We have a fairly sizable space at one of our properties in Edison that we do some of that engagement that brings folks from the outside and making that an opportunity. So that's something we would certainly want to work with the township on, or local vendors or entities that have space available to be able to facilitate that community development and engagement.
I understand, but just somehow I don't know how we address that in the approval, because if it's not addressed, then there's no ability to limit the potential vehicles. Where would they park? And I just think because of the nature of the neighborhood, while I understand the population that you're serving and what you've said is very compelling, but how do we balance that with the reality of the landscape and the limited parking in that neighborhood? Thank you.
Certainly. I think in terms of just responding to your question, what would probably make the most sense is for us to be very contingent and working with the township on finding some additional space off-site where there is opportunity for parking and to address those particular concerns. And we will just maintain just our internal services for these 5 units on that property. And we're okay with that.
Thank you.
I had a question. I just wanted to clarify, for each of the units, for like the 2-bedroom, are these cohesive families that are applying to live in there, or could they be roommates, or anyone can be living in there?
So in terms of the funding source, they cannot be unrelated persons unless they're obviously married, but it would have to be actual family.
Any other questions?
I just had one, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Sarmed.
Just one question. As far as parking on this site and some of your other properties, how does it compare as far as the amount of parking that's provided, and if it's adequate for, this number of tenants?
So many of our other properties that have some type of parking area, typically we have enough parking spaces for each unit at the property, so there's no need to actually park on the street. Typically, we haven't seen that with our properties. We also find that in our 1-bedroom units, typically our tenants don't have cars, especially those that are in the extremely low income range in terms of income. So it's more so the families may have a vehicle. At our other property in Highland Park, only one of the 4 tenants actually has a vehicle, but we have off-street parking for all tenants.
Okay. And you would regulate, I imagine, by the lease agreements that, you would limit the number of cars if necessary.
Yes.
Per unit. Okay.
Yes, that's correct. And we do collect that information for the vehicles to understand what vehicles should be on our property, and if we have to get them removed, we'll remove vehicles that don't belong there.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sarmed. Mr. Burr, any further questions?
No, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had.
Thank you. Any members of the board have any further questions?
Just one last question on the playground that was mentioned. Would that be just a regular playground, or would you consider some special sensory type playground for the children there?
We would consider what's appropriate for the families that are living at the property. So if it's sensory based, yes, we would want to make sure that it fits the needs of those families living there.
Okay, great. Thank you.
It's time I'd like to open up any questions for the public. Mr. Kellel? No public present. That'll close the public portion for the questioning from Mr. Kellel. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, next would be our architect.
Good evening. We'll swear you in.
I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
My name is Stephen Schock.
Can you spell your last name?
That's S-C-H-O-C-H.
Thank you. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Hey, Mr. Schatz, could you state your qualifications for the board?
Certainly. I'm a principal architect at Thriven Design. We're located in Collingswood, New Jersey. I am a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey and have been so in good standing since 1987.
And have you previously provided testimony before any land use boards?
More times than I'd care to remember.
We would ask that Mr. Schatz be so accepted.
Does the board have any objections to Mr. Schock's qualifications? Please proceed.
Now, your firm had prepared the architectural plans that we've submitted to the board,
We did.
and you're familiar with the site and the application before the board?
I am.
And could you describe the proposed structure to the board in terms of both floor plans as well as elevation?
Certainly. I'll be referring to simply the exhibits that were provided in the advanced materials. First, just to basically walk through the physical construction of the building. It's a 2-story building, and the intention of design basically is to create a 5-family structure that has the bulk and appearance basically like a big house. Because we're on the edge of a residential neighborhood, it's most appropriate, in our opinion, to manifest that in a way that evokes a similar massing and scale of some of the buildings around. So it's a new two-story. There's no basement. There's no attic. So it's simply 5 units. There are 3 units on the ground floor. There's 1 2-bedroom unit and 2 1-bedroom units on the ground floor. And the second floor has a single 2-bedroom unit and a single 1-bedroom unit. They are, unlike many apartment buildings, they're not stacked up right all in a regular fashion. It's a very asymmetrical floor plan. That's by intent with 5 units. What that allows us to do is to manipulate the roof lines in such a way that it doesn't come across like the big box that you might expect from an apartment type of building. It is, from a building code standpoint, classified as an apartment building. It's an R2 structure from the building code standpoint. It is not any type of care facility or anything like that. I know there's been some discussion about the residents. This is to be built just like any other fully independently occupied apartment structure. So it'll have a sprinkler system for full fire protection. Each of the units will be constructed in a manner where there will be certain fire integrity between the separations between units, and both horizontally from the first floor to the second floor, as well as side to side when you've got 2 units adjacent to one another. So all of those building code aspects will be complied with. The units themselves, as I said, there are 3 1-bedroom units, and each of those are 676 square feet. The 2-bedroom units are 862 square feet. The square footage and design of the units themselves are all in compliance with the state requirements, the UHAC requirements that regulate the design standards for affordable housing in the state of New Jersey, as well as there are some additional standards that sometimes the funding sources that Mr. Kellum was discussing, sometimes different funding sources will add layers of additional physical criteria to it. So we've already anticipated that, so they are designed in accordance to all the intended funding sources. The community room is on the ground floor, immediately adjacent to the entrance. There's been some discussion over that room already. I'd simply like to point out that room is only 271 square feet. It's effectively another living room. Roughly about 12 feet by 22 feet is the same kind of square footage. So to the concern that there might be more activity there that would drive, it's really not an assembly type of space where you would be able to even accommodate any kind of larger gathering. Generally, the services Mr. Kellum described are often provided to the residents in their home, in their unit, but there are some times when it may be beneficial for one or more of the residents to meet with somebody in that room on the ground floor. That's really what it's there for. It's primarily a convenience space and additional, basically an extra living room. There is an open porch. Shifting the exhibit to the color rendering of the view from Whitney Court East. There, as you can see, the design is such where the roof on the left side of the building slopes down, so it's kind of an asymmetrical massing, and there is a front porch that faces Whitney Court and has an access directly from the street as well as from the parking area immediately next to it. The total square footage of the building, I think that question was asked, the total square footage is 5,942 square feet, which is just shy of 6,000. So when you think, and that's a combination of the units as well as that common area, as well as the stairwell and the hallway and things of that nature. So it's certainly larger than a single-family home in this neighborhood would be. But it is also 5 families. It's not intended to pretend it's a small single home. The intention is for it to, as a 5-family structure, fit well architecturally and contextually in with the rest of the neighborhood. the idea for most affordable housing, and certainly supportive housing, and Mr. Kellum discussed this as well, is the notion that as people are driving by, they really shouldn't be able to tell that there shouldn't be significant clues that it's either affordable housing or special needs housing. There will be some things that obviously people can see. There might be a cluster mailbox that the post office requires that has to be there. Most single-family homes don't have a 7-car parking lot. But again, those things are at the end of the dead end, so they won't be really apparent to the casual bypass, the casual person passing by. There was some discussion about the particular features in the units for the intended population of deaf and hard of hearing. Most of that is dealt with primarily through devices and through the specification of certain things. Generally, it's a matter of flashing lights for when people are alert and awake. There are strobes that are in the various rooms that are tied to the emergency systems. If the alarm goes off or something like that, there are lights flashing in all these areas. Now, lights flashing might wake somebody up. They might not if they're asleep. There's also devices that effectively shake the bed, and that is the other main method to make sure that this particular population is well cared for and won't ignore an emergency type of situation. There was a question about the physical accessibility. On this building, the 3 units that are on the ground floor are designed for the passages and things of that nature for wheelchair accessibility in accordance with the ADA as well as the state of New Jersey barrier-free codes. The upper floors are not accessible. There's no requirement by either funding sources, building codes, or any to require an elevator in a building of this size. What the codes do require is that when you have a building that has ground floor units, the ground floor units comply. And in this case, 3 out of 5 will be either accessible or easily adapted for that because they're on an accessible route. The addition of an elevator would do several things. It would make the building bigger than it otherwise would be. It would probably change the electrical service distribution that you would need. It would certainly incur much higher first cost and ongoing maintenance issues for an elevator that is fairly rarely used. So that's why it's very common in buildings like this for the ground floor units to be accessible and the upper floor ones not. And with this particular population, while it's possible you might have someone with the deaf and hard of hearing also have a mobility impairment, it's not the typical makeup of that particular special needs group. So the vast majority of that group is fully ambulatory and can make use of the upper units. So that's the functional aspect of the design. From the exterior, I simply wanted to note that it is a 2-story structure. By the way your height is calculated from average grade to the top, we are at 29 feet 6 inches, so we're under 30 feet. What is allowed is 2.5 stories, 35 feet. So we're well below what is permitted in the zone. Again, no height variance is required. The design is very common residential materials, a lot of like hardy type of siding. All of this is very energy efficient. There are codes and also requirements by the agencies to use sustainable materials, low VOC, or no VOC, volatile organic compound type of materials so that it improves indoor air quality. The energy efficiency standards required and imposed by the funding sources exceed the energy codes of the state. So it's very often, I will say that affordable housing is affordable to occupy. It's not all that affordable to build because it's actually held to a higher construction standard than what a typical developer of housing would be held to. So it's very, very high quality. The last thing I wanted to add was, there was a note about the HVAC equipment. You'll see on the plan behind the building in the rear yard, there are several notations for HVAC equipment based on the ground in the rear yard. There's nothing on the roof, there's nothing on the front yard, there's nothing visible from the public right-of-way. These units are typically all independent in terms of their utilities, so they all get their own utility bills. There's obviously a sixth system for the common areas, so that no one individual is paying for that meeting space or the common hallways. So there'll be 6 systems, and generally what are referred to as mini-split type of systems. They can be either ducted systems or console systems on the inside. They're not designed to be the through-the-wall big grill under the window kind of thing that you might be thinking of. You've got the outside condensing units, very common for residential. In fact, they're smaller than what most single-family homes have because they're very efficient. And there are no grills coming through the walls. So that's all screened from view of the public right-of-way, because that was a comment. What'd I miss?
Let's talk quickly about fire department. They had a couple of comments for the FDC to be in front as well as a knockback.
Yes, that's very common and can be accommodated. That's simply the ability for first responders to have the ability to bypass the front door lock when they need to respond to an emergency.
And then there was, I think, a comment in Mr. Ahmad's report. Your opinion in terms of how the scale, design materials, and the overall structure relate to neighboring structures?
As I've kind of said already, this is a little bit larger than some of the other lots in that neighborhood. You know, it's 125 feet wide, 100 feet deep. There are some 2-story structures around. Immediately across the street, we see the back of, I think it's called the Pathways multifamily. Many of the other single-family homes, some are 1-story ranchers. Others have 2-story elements to them. They all have these kinds of sloped roofs. So we're using the same kind of details and just very traditional design style. We're not trying to stand out. We're trying to blend in, and that's the intent.
That's all I have.
Thank you very much. I'd like to open up the board for any questions, Mr. Shouk. Mr. Bongiorno?
Yes, I'd like a condition for snow removal and grass maintenance. Can we get that?
Okay, if you could elaborate, Mr. Bongiorno?
Well, there's going to be grass, needs to be trimmed, bushes need to be kept, and snow removal so they can get into the parking lot. Can that be a condition for approval?
Do we have building codes that would apply to the removal of snow as well as upkeep of property?
I don't know of any building code regarding snow. There is an ordinance that deals with grass. It can be enforced by the zoning officer and the health department.
As far as adding a condition, Ms. Fina, essentially you're adding a condition for enforcement of existing code, from what I understand.
Yeah, that's what I would think. And it's your testimony that you're going to both maintain I'm not even sure it's the architect's testimony, maybe it was Mr. Callan's testimony. You do intend to upkeep the property, both the grass area as well as the snow removal, correct?
You can ask a question regarding it. So is it a no snow policy? Is it a 1-inch? When do they start plowing? Up to you.
Yeah, that would be
Yes,
better.
please.
So in terms of snow removal, we have a contractor that does all of our grass cutting. They start around April 1st. They do cleanup as well around November to start cleaning up the area. We do mulching. We trim our bushes and cut back trees as needed. In terms of snow removal, it's literally If there's a snow-related event planned, they come out and start salting almost immediately. And our contract is based on the inches of snow that actually are accumulated, but they're usually out within the time that it actually stops snowing. They're out actually plowing and taking care of it for us.
And then landscaping, how often do they cut?
We typically, so it depends on how fast the grass grows, and every neighborhood's a little different, but it's either every week or every other week. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Correa.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, can I ask?
Yeah, Mr. Bergeron, does that address your concern?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. Mr. Chowdhury?
Thank you. Yep. I think you already explained the square feet for our 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, and everything is there in the drawing itself.
Yes.
On the laundry room, this laundry room is in a common area, is for use for everybody, or somebody can buy their own laundry in upstairs or downstairs?
Thank you for bringing it, because I don't think I mentioned the laundry. There are actually 2 laundry rooms that are off the common corridor, one on the second floor and one on the first floor.
Yes.
Those machines are available for the tenants to use corporately. They're not private. So the 3 on the ground floor will typically use the 2 laundry machines that are on the ground floor laundry room, and the ones upstairs have one on their floor. That way they don't have to bring laundry up and down the stairs. Actually, when designing the standards for laundry for multifamily, for non-age restricted, the standard is typically 2 machines for 10 units. We have 4 machines, we have twice that effectively. So there's more than enough laundry provision for this unit.
Okay. Mr. Kellum, I think it may be for you or you, I don't know. But this, first, the common room can be used by tenant for their own individual function, or it's only for the common services?
So the tenants would have the ability to work with our services department if they needed to book the space for a birthday party or something like that. But they work with our services department, not necessarily our property management team. I would just note that the community room will also have a keyed lock on it, so we know who is going in and out of it. We do that at all of our properties that have community spaces that are available to the tenants.
Okay, stick around. You actually opened up another question there. On the main door, when somebody basically try to open it, obviously the tenant can obviously know all the code and everything else, they can go in there. Suppose somebody try to open it, you basically watch it from a central locations, or how you will know that, okay, this is not one of our tenants?
So so those devices, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but I have one at my home, and it actually is usually attached to an app, or we have an online system that we use where we can tap into it from anywhere as long as we have internet access, and it notifies us if someone's trying to get in with the wrong code. It also would, if we choose to set up alerts, it would tell us exactly when everybody comes in and out the property based on their code that they used.
Yeah, these are important because now you're talking about deaf or hard of hearing. So, a normal person will obviously hear something, but a tenant may not hear it. So
Yes.
Is there any extra precaution there for that?
We can look into what other options there might be for this particular population from that perspective. I'm not, off the top of my head, I'm not familiar with a specific device that may do that, but we can certainly, we're willing to do whatever is necessary to provide the services to this particular population.
Okay, it actually will not have so-called individual device, but it can have a unit under each individual so-called unit, 2-bedroom or 1-bedroom, that sound, instead of signaling, it will be sound. Well, sound doesn't help anything, but at least in a video or something, you can project it.
Yeah, we would, again, look at what kind of devices are out there that are on the market that could serve that particular need, and we'd be happy to provide specifications on that.
Okay, thank you. Especially it will be important for if the 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom in the ground floor has people with the hard of hearing as well as the disabled.
Yes.
That will be very helpful.
Yeah, all of our, just in reference to door handles, we always use levers just for ADA compliance. So in terms of physical need and using, that's going to be for every single door handle on the property will be like that.
Thank you. Coming back to you, sir. On the open volume on the second floor, that,
So you need 2 chairs down here.
yeah, right, okay. On the second floor, the open volume, that is a part of the 2-bedroom, or it is basically just facade?
The area on the second floor that's marked as open,
Mhm.
that is simply a 2-story space in the common space. It is not connected to the 2-bedroom unit at all.
So that space, there is nothing there, but nobody can use
There's
that
no floor there. It's simply a tall ceiling under for the common room.
Oh, okay. Just a curiosity, why didn't you design that one for at least usable space for somebody?
Quite honestly, square footage, and it costs money.
Okay. So it's a very nice space to utilize it. Let's go to the parking space. I think Mr. Papas already asked. So there is no extra parking space here.
There are, I believe, 7 parking spaces for 5 units.
Okay.
So typically, as Mr. Kellum had testified, and there will be other testimony from the engineer on the parking, the more specific to the parking, but Mr. Kellum already testified that many times in their experience, 1-bedroom units sometimes don't have any cars. And from my experience doing affordable housing throughout the state of New Jersey, it's rare that we ever see a need of more than 1 car per unit.
Okay.
And even at that point, the utilization of the parking is less than that. We see that in hundreds and hundreds.
I'm sure you are experienced with that one. Now, since you have a handicap accessibility, so how many handicap spaces we have?
I believe there's one that is set aside for that.
Oh,
In terms of the parking lot, we can have our engineer discuss that.
okay, no problem at all. Okay, for now, I'm okay, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chowdhury. Any other questions? Mr. Wang?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is there any bicycle parking space for these tenants?
So we don't currently have any dedicated enclosed bicycle parking, but if that is the pleasure of the board to install some type of bike rack or something like that, I'm sure that the applicant would be amenable to it.
Mm-hmm. Is there any in the attic? Is there any space to store some, for your maintenance team or something?
No, the attic is basically a roof truss, so that it's not a conventionally framed attic. There's no access to it other than what's required by the code. The code requires an access panel simply to, primarily it's for firefighters to make sure that the attic is clear in the event of an emergency. But it is not designed for storage, and it is not designed for occupancy.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I'd like to compliment on the structure. I think it's a very handsome structure, and I think given the fact that you're putting 5 tenants in there, I think you've put a lot of homework into that design, so.
Thank you.
All right. I do have a question. How are you proposing to shade some of the larger parts of the structure to the rear? What's the deciduous tree coverage looking like, or what's proposed to be planted?
I'm going to defer that to the engineer who prepared the landscape plan.
Okay, thank you. Going back to the front entrance, we talked about the code a little bit. The code that's provided to each tenant, is it unique per tenant, or is there a general code? How's it typically done for all the other sites that you have throughout the state? For example, if there's 5 tenants, does each tenant have the same code to enter the front door, or is there a unique code per tenant?
Oh, the security code.
The security code to enter the front door.
Typically, that is something unique to an individual tenant. It's a digital version of what most people would refer to as like a keyed system, where you have a key, I have a key, my key doesn't work in your door. The owner has a master key. That works in all the doors, but that's not the case for the individual tenants.
Are there
It's a
any,
digital version of that philosophy.
are there any planned, or are there any plans, I should say, for delivery people to, for example, Amazon has services these days where you can provide them a code to be able to deliver within the structure?
There's no plan currently for Amazon to deliver within the structure. Typically, that is when you have a mail room or a package room inside the structure that is set up for that. This is too small for a room like that. In fact, the mail is going to, obviously we have to work with the local postmaster, but the mail is going to likely be handled at the curb where everybody else is. We'd love for it to be under the cover of the porch. We're not sure we can get the postman to actually go from the street to the porch. But that's entirely up to them. As far as packages and delivery, it's an ample-sized porch, so those things can be dropped off just like on your house or mine.
Okay, so access will be limited to the tenant and the managed services?
Yes.
Okay. What's the illumination look like on the front door? Are there street lights, or is there a fair illumination for entrance?
Again, the illumination plan, the lighting plan was prepared by the engineer.
Okay.
But the porch, the intention is for it to be very similar to a big house. The porch has some ceiling lights in it that will illuminate that, and I believe that the building has some sidewall lighting that provides some illumination to the parking area in the rear yard.
Okay. I have a few other questions for the engineer. One last one for you. I'm very focused on the needs of the proposed tenant, and we talked about the devices that would be used for fire alert and all that, but the fire department didn't ask this question, but I'm going to. It might be a little technical, but these shake devices that you mentioned, do you know approximately at how many parts per million they go off?
How many parts per million?
For example, if there's a carbon monoxide leak in a home, it's typically recommended that you evacuate a home around 50 parts per million. You could start getting sick around 35 parts per million. I'm just curious, at what...
So the devices are not tied, they're not sensors of the indoor air environment themselves.
Okay.
They are electronically tied to the carbon monoxide detection system or to the fire sprinkler system. So if the sprinklers go off, if the alarms that are designed to identify exactly the situations you're talking about, if there's an alarm happening at that device, it triggers electronically the shaking device or the strobes.
Okay. I think my question is probably a little technical in nature in that I'm looking for the exact technology or the system that you're going to be using.
That I don't know. It's something that we will ultimately specify as we get further along in the design. But obviously, those systems are governed by the building codes, and we'll be in compliance with that.
And I only ask because recently it's made headlines that a lot of these systems that are used today, even for residential, believe it or not, they don't go off sometimes till 4 to 5 hours. It takes a long time to reach those parts per million. So when I'm thinking about a special need tenant, especially that, doesn't have an audible alarm to help them, that's why I'm asking these questions. So thank you for entertaining them. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Are there any other questions from our dais?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Banga.
Can you just help me reconcile a couple of numbers? So I'm looking at the improved lot coverage calculation worksheet, and I see footprint of area is 3218, but then on your sheet I see 3679 for the first floor.
Our engineer will address that.
Yeah, the lot coverage calculations, I'm going to defer to the civil engineer.
Okay, and then just with regards to the patio or the porch, however you want to call it, that is sufficient for how many wheelchairs? Like the sizing of that? Like, can 2 wheelchairs could kind of be going back and forth through the patio? Or like, what is the size of that? And then just with regards to the door, it looks like just one, like the main door, one wheelchair can go through. I just want to.
Yeah, the main door, again, compliance with the codes that govern such things. It has a clearance for the wheelchair passage. So it's typically a normal 36-inch wide door is satisfactory for that. And the porch itself, in terms of its depth from the face of the wall to its outer edge, I'm estimating that it's approximately 7 to 8 feet. So that's more than enough space for 2 wheelchairs to pass by one another, in the rare event that you would have one coming and one going.
And then the intent of that patio space is remain open?
Yes, that's simply like an open front porch with columns and it's covered.
And then the door will have a button for compliance with the wheelchair
That is actually not a requirement. You're thinking of, in a commercial property, there would be a paddle type of thing that would that is a function in the codes of a certain level of occupancy that this building wouldn't come close to. So the idea would be, if you're in a wheelchair and you live there, your key code will open the door, and the door can open, you can get in. That's the way most residential. Well, you can open the door. You can open the door because you've got the ability to reach to do that. You pass through and then you close the door. That is the way the vast majority of residential accessibility is dealt with.
And how difficult would it be to have the functionality for them?
I'm not saying it would be difficult or impossible. I'm simply saying that, number one, that is a technical piece that has not been designed yet. And number two, it's not very common in a building of this size. Okay. Excuse me?
That's the reason. Tree. Are you cutting any trees or displacing it?
Again, I'll defer to the civil engineer, but I believe it's basically a vacant lot.
Okay. No, I see in the backside there's some trees. That's why I'm asking you. Okay. Your engineer will explain to you then.
Yes.
No problem. We also talk about fire hydrant. I think there will be one, or there is no need for it.
Again, the engineer will address that.
Good enough. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Maguro.
How many residents can that building accommodate?
Again, Mr. Kellum addressed that in terms of the occupancy of a one-bedroom unit. You can occupy at most with 2 people. So there are 3 one-bedroom units that could be at most, at maximum occupancy would be 6 for those units. A 2-bedroom unit, maximum occupancy would be 4. So
So for the building would be how much?
14. At total maximum of what's allowed is 14. From a practical application, it's unlikely it's going to go that high, because very often those one-bedroom units are single-person households.
Okay, thank you.
How many vehicles did we mention were permitted per family? Was there a limit to the amount of vehicles?
In terms of the
Tenants.
the applicants,
Per tenant, yeah.
typically 1.
Okay. Any questions from our professionals?
Just a few, Mr. Chairman. I know you'd mentioned the mechanicals, the units in the rear of the building, and I don't know if I raised it in my review. I did ask where they were, but I was wondering if there's any possibility to screen those from a noise attenuation perspective, more so than anything else, than visual, because of the proximity of the neighbor at the rear. That neighbor there is a fence separating, an existing fence separating the two, but that is someone else's backyard, and I'm just nervous that, maybe one air conditioner is one, but the hum of, 5 or 6 can be cumulative. So if there is any ability to kind of individually attenuate the noise there, I would appreciate it.
It's not uncommon to place some low shrubbery and things like that, but we do have to maintain the necessary air clearances for the equipment to function properly.
And I think that's fine. I think right now there is a landscape bed around it. There are some plantings all the way to the rear, but if there's anything that can be done, less from a visual perspective, I don't think that portion of the backyard's really proposed to be utilized for anything but the play equipment potentially, which is adjacent to it, but I think anything that can help attenuate would be helpful.
Okay.
And there is a portion of the building with doors access from the exterior that's marked as utility. Can you just provide what that is to be utilized for?
Well, typically that would be the water service room where the fire apparatus would be. So that would be something where as requested by the fire department, they'll be able to access that without gaining entrance to the secured areas and going through the knockbox. They would have access to those water controls directly from the
Okay, thank you. This is probably a question for the engineer, but has there been any perimeter fencing for the property that's been explored?
That is a question for the engineer.
Thank you, that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. Board Engineer, Mr. Burr.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Few questions, Steve. So I think we heard previously no basement is
That's
proposed
correct.
on this building? Okay. And I can't see the exhibit that's on the board. I don't need to see it. But I'm looking at the color rendering that was attached to the submission.
It's the same exhibit.
Is that the same?
Yes.
So is this a fair representation of what this building might look like? That's what's being proposed, the gray?
Yes.
and earth tone? Okay.
We spoke with the applicant over several, their intention was not to have very vibrant colors, but something of an understated and think the word was elegant that they were looking for.
Okay. And we established there's 5 units being proposed. Each unit has interior access from the interior corridors or hallways, correct?
Correct.
There's no other exterior entrances to these units?
There is a single entrance from the front that you see off the porch.
And that's not a code requirement to have
Nope.
additional access?
The windows, the individual windows in the sleeping areas have to be designed of a certain size to act as a second emergency, but in a fire sprinkler building that has fewer than 4 units per floor, that qualifies as a building with 1 exit.
Okay. So the only exterior common space is the covered porch?
That's
near the
correct.
entrance. There's not going to be any other patio spaces around the side or?
That is correct.
Okay. Last question I have is lighting. And I know the engineer is going to cover his lighting plan, but as it relates to your architectural, there's a number of wall pack units of building-mounted lights around the perimeter of the building. Are they necessary?
I believe the engineer and I have spoken about possibly scaling some of those back, especially the one on the west facade.
Yeah,
Frankly, I don't think we need that one at all, and maybe not as much in the rear.
I understand wanting to have some additional lighting on the parking lot, the driveway side, but to the west, to the rear, where you have the immediately adjacent residential properties, I'd recommend we lose them.
We're stealing a little of Ian's thunder.
Very good. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Any other questions? Any questions from our public? No public present, then I'll close the public portion for this witness. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Who is your next witness?
Our final witness for the night is our engineer, Ian Burton.
Mr. Burton, if you're set, could you raise your right hand to be sworn in? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Burton, would you state your qualifications for the board?
Sure. My name is Ian Byrne from Mid-Atlantic Engineering. I'm the site civil engineer for the project. I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in civil engineering from the College of New Jersey in 2012, and a professional engineering license in the state of New Jersey since 2017. My license is active and in good standing.
And have you previously testified before any land use boards?
I have.
And you've been accepted as an expert in engineering?
I have.
And we would ask that Mr. Burton be so accepted.
Does the board have any objections to Mr. Burns' qualifications? Please proceed.
And Mr. Burton, you prepared the site plan that we've submitted in connection with this application?
Correct.
And you're familiar, excuse me, you're familiar with the site as it currently exists?
Correct, yes.
And you're familiar with the proposal before the board?
Yes.
Let's just start in terms of the site as it exists. Can you describe that, describe the site, and indicate whether there's any environmental constraints with regard to the site?
Sure, and I guess if I may, I have 3 exhibits that have not been previously submitted. They were all dated April 7th, 2026. First one's titled Overall Aerial.
How would you like that marked?
A1 with today's date?
So referring to this exhibit, the site is in the center. It's located the site is located on Whitney Court. It's known as Block 511, Lot 3, and consists of 0.29 acres, or 12,500 square feet, located in the R10A zone, moderate density residential. The site is adjacent to an office building to the east, has residential houses to the north and to the west, and zooming out generally in the vicinity, it's north of Route 287, south of the Somerset County Library. It's just a building west of the Somerset County Vocational High School, and there are some large retirement apartments to the west. The site is vacant and undeveloped in its current state, with covered in grass and a number of both, I think, live and dead trees around the perimeter. There are no known environmental constraints on site. I have another exhibit, which is the site rendering, also dated April 7th, 2026.
Mark this A2.
So this depicts the building footprint, which is the 5-unit, 2-story supportive housing. It shows the pedestrian access with a sidewalk off of Whitney Court towards the center of the site. And it also has the accessible path through the patio towards the parking lot to the east, where we have the 7-space parking lot and a 22-foot drive aisle. Based off code, the site requires 1.5 spaces per unit. For the 5 units, there are 7.5 spaces required, relying on the state's EV rules, which allows 10% reduction. That would result in, a decrease by 0.75 spaces. So a total requirement of 6.75, rounding up to 7, which is the number we provided. I think in consultation with the professionals' letters, we have 2 EVs shown here, but we're amenable to reducing that to just 1 EV for the site. And we also have the 1 ADA loading, 1-day space and loading stall. The site would, as functioning as similar single-family residential, we would anticipate similar delivery vehicles to park quickly on Whitney Court and walk up the path to drop off the packages on the patio. Again, there's a 22-foot wide drive aisle based off of the low number of parking spaces and the minimal speed that people will be exiting the site. We feel that 22 feet is adequate width for access to get in and out of the site. Describing some, the site's drainage and stormwater. The site is not located within a FEMA flood zone, and based on my read, is not applicable to the Bridgewater Flood Damage Prevention Ordinance, since it's not in a special flood areas. The site will maintain generally the existing curb elevations, which range from 115 on the left and goes up to 122 on the right. So the road has about a 4% slope, which we will maintain. This building sits in the high on the site at elevation 122.3, which allows the drainage away from the building. The parking ranges from elevation 121 to 122, with a high point in the ridge, generally where my cursor is now. That allows the runoff to drain either to the north and then through a curb cut adjacent to where the trash will be stored, and with the grass swale, the topography will drain around the building along the west side of the house towards Whitney Drive, or any other drainage south of that ridge line will follow the parking lot towards Whitney Drive, which generally follows the existing drainage patterns. Since the site is so small, the site is not considered a major development for stormwater standards per the state rules, as it does not disturb more than an acre of land or a quarter acre of impervious. We did kind of grade the site to meet this town's 4 runoff standards, in that we are directing runoff away from our adjacent neighbors. We are maintaining generally the drainage patterns where everything is draining towards Whitney Drive. We'll ensure that there's no adverse impact to the erosion control in the area, and nothing is going to wash away, and we are not adversely impacting the downstream flooding or erosion in the area. I guess there was my third and final exhibit that I'll briefly refer to is the hillside density exhibit,
A3.
dated April 7th, 2026. And I think this was discussed or had some information in the application, but here's a plan that depicts the existing conditions of the site, green, minimal slopes, and then as it goes from yellow, orange, and red, the increased slope based off of the town standards that tabulates the area of the steep slopes on site, which would impact the required floor area ratio and pervious coverage. So the yellow and red are the small areas that would totally decrease from our 12,500 square feet to, I believe, 12,109 square feet of allowable area for this site. Going back to the site rendering, the utilities will utilize, we'll have a fire and a domestic water service running through the drive aisle towards Whitney Drive, and a 4-inch sanitary sewer service also to Whitney Drive. And we'll coordinate with your sewer department to ensure that that's meets their standards, and any other existing utilities that might be on site will be capped and removed accordingly. We'll coordinate with the local utility providers for gas, electric, and telephone. I believe there's a number of utilities within Whitney Drive. We have submitted will serve request letters to all the agencies, and we'll provide it to your professionals upon receipt. There was a comment from the fire department to add a hydrant in the front of the site or at the end of the street, and I believe we have no objection to adding that accordingly. For landscaping, the site currently does not have any proposed fencing, though our neighbor here behind us does have I believe it's a 6-foot-high wooden privacy fence along our rear, or the property line to the north, generally where my cursor is now. And we are proposing a number of shrubs and trees, specifically a long line of trees to our neighbor to the west, and foundation shrubs around the building to meet code. We have a total of 26 proposed trees surrounding the site, number on Whitney Drive and on the corners. That's to meet the town standards for just based off of the disturbance areas. So 3 trees per every 5,000 square feet, where we have approximately 15,000 square feet of disturbance on site, and with along our frontage, where 12 trees are required, and we have I believe it's 15 evergreen trees and 11 indigenous trees for a total of 26 trees. There will all be native species. And then I don't have the exact number of existing trees on site. There are a number of live and dead ones, but they're all anticipated to be removed, and we'll coordinate with your planner and engineer to ensure that we meet the tree removal requirement. So we'll have a tree count conducted based off of the diameter. And then, as we talked earlier, we had a number of lighting that we will reduce. So there was originally 8 wall-mounted lights. I believe there was 3 in the rear, 1 on the side of the parking lot, and 1 on the side of our neighbor to the west. And we're happy to remove the ones on the west to reduce any lighting to our neighbor to the west, and then we remove lighting to the rear to only have the minimal necessary for to illuminate the playground area if needed, and then 1 building-mounted light for the parking lot. We also had a number of kind of ceiling-mounted lights on the patio and the front door, and there is 1 existing street light across from us on Whitney Drive. And so all of that together, provided the adequate foot candles to illuminate the walkway to the house, and then with the light on the side of the parking lot illuminated that parking area. And then just to kind of conclude, if I didn't miss anything, we received your professionals' letters, your planner's letter from April 1st, the engineer's letter from April 2nd, fire marshal from the 2nd, municipal sewer from the 2nd, zoning officer from the March 25th, and your traffic and safety police. And I think generally we have no objections and can comply with those during resolution compliance. And I guess the one thing that I alluded to but didn't go into detail was the hillside and the lot coverage, since our zone table only listed percentages. I do believe let's see if I can find it. I had a typo on the form that someone referred to earlier. So where the site is 12,500 square feet. With the hillside reduction, it's 12,109 square feet. For 60% allowed disturbance, we have 7,265 square feet. I believe a form I submitted had a typo, but we are, as a condition, we will definitely meet the 60% and not exceed. So the form that I have has the total disturbance area between the house and the driveway, sidewalk and patio, et cetera, at 7,264 square feet. So 1 square foot less than allowed. And I can provide that to your engineer, to your planners during resolution compliance. I think that concludes my presentation, and obviously take questions.
I think there were comments in the board professional reports about parking lot buffering. Could you address that?
Yes. So right now our parking is, again, on the east side of the site. There is no specific buffering along our parking stalls, though there is buffering to the north and south from the neighboring areas. Though there are the cars parked will have their headlights pointed towards the adjacent lot, which is the office building. Between us and the office building is their rear driveway shown on the screen, and approximately 20 to 30 foot of existing landscaping on their property.
You feel that's adequate?
I feel it's adequate, and we're not, the parking is not disturbing our neighbors.
And quick question about the easement. I think there was a mention of a sewer easement to the rear of the property.
Yes, there's, based off the tax map and our survey records, there seems to be an easement. It appears to be, though there's not that much documentation, that it was to our benefit, and it's in the northwest corner of the site where my cursor is now, and generally runs along the back of our adjacent property. We'll coordinate with the sewer department. We anticipated our sewer service to run out towards Whitney Drive. So we'll, again, if there's anything in there, we will work with them to cap and remove it as needed.
And Bill, to answer your question, I think it was yours. Our title search did show the 10-foot sanitary sewer, I think, on the map, so I can provide you what I have from our search. Very good.
Does that conclude your testimony, Mr. Burton?
Yes.
Thank you. Any questions from our board? Mr. Magura.
Okay, you said you don't have a tree count. I think we need to have that. We need to know the size, the type, where they're located. I hate to see a 200-year-old oak tree taken down unnecessarily. I think we could see a list and a drawing with those details. Without knowing that, not knowing what we're going to tear down, I feel uneasy. I tried to get there yesterday to look, but the road was closed due to construction. So,
I guess I don't have the specific details without the survey. I generally know that there were 4 trees in the rear of the site, kind of in this corner over here, and they were in the corners, 1 or 2 in this corner, 1 or 2 in the front. I am not a tree expert, so we'd have to do a survey, but nothing appeared to be 200 years old or of value. one or two of the trees were blooming right now. The remainder were not.
Possibly just the major trees, 8 inches in diameter or more?
Maybe more, but not significantly more. They didn't seem to be large.
Okay, but I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I don't know if that's.
Yeah, if it's okay with the board, it's certainly something that we could work out with your board professionals, to their satisfaction.
It's okay with me.
Mr. Pappas.
Could you talk a little bit more about the parking? Are there, I think someone may have testified that there are 7 spaces. Are there assigned spaces for each unit?
The question is, will we assign spaces to each unit?
I'm just curious if that's typical of what you provide. The number of, you said 1 handicap parking space, and if there's a need for, depending upon the tenant's needs, if there's a need for an assigned parking space, if someone has that physical limitation, is that something you can accommodate in some manner? Okay. Stormwater runoff was mentioned, and I think you talked about how the runoff is, for the most part, being directed to Whitney Court?
Correct.
Either directly on the pavement or back around, right? Could you just go over that again? Because I seem to think what I guess I would call the northeast corner of the property, I don't remember how you said the water would go, and I'm concerned about the additional lot coverage, water going back towards the property to the north.
Yes. So I'm trying to not get too many numbers, but right. So the building sits at about 122, and the parking lot ridge line sits similar to 122, and then from there everything drains downhill. So to the north it drains, and there's a kind of a curb cut in this corner, if you can see my screen, near the trash enclosure. So everything on the east side of the site drains in this direction towards that curb cut, or north towards that curb cut from the center of the parking aisle. And from there, we'll have I guess it's a grass swale berm combo. So along the property line, it's a berm, so it's directing everything in towards the site, while everything is directed away from the building. So there's the low point swale here. I want to say it's right. So it's at about 120 elevation here, and the elevation at the southwest corner is about 116 or 117, and so the swale, the berm along the property line and swale in between the property and the building will direct that out to this corner around the house.
Mr. Burr, have you looked at that to see if the swale, the depth of the swale, the height of the berm would be sufficient to keep what would be the expected rainfall on the site moving towards Whitney Court versus north to the adjoining property?
I've looked at it. I haven't had the opportunity to ask the applicant's engineer any questions about stormwater, but I will.
Okay.
To answer your specific question, I think the swale and the berm to the rear of the proposed building is adequate. I think where the plan needs a little refining is on the left side as it drains towards Whitney Drive to protect Lot 4.
Got it. Okay.
So it needs a little bit of refinement.
And to add to that, just so we're the swale right now, as of the plans you have in front of you, or the site plans package, has we'll say a steeper swale in the rear and a flatter swale along the side of the property. So we'll kind of even out those contours to ensure that everything can get from the parking to Whitney Court.
My last question is about the fire hydrant that was referenced. The fire official is asking for another fire hydrant. Where is the closest existing fire hydrant?
That I do not have.
The reason I ask for that, this is I'm being truthful here. the township has to then pay for, on an annual basis, every fire hydrant that is installed. And while the fire official may want one there, if there is one within close proximity, I would want to have a conversation or have our board, maybe engineer, talk with him about this to see whether that is really necessary. Just because he's asking for it doesn't mean necessarily that it's needed if there is one close by. And there's, again, an additional expense. Sure. This is Mr. Plakey, who's a neighbor. I know him. So it's around the corner. Yeah. Okay, so around the corner.
Yeah, I think there's a hydrant out by Shasta, 1 block down, I think is the nearest hydrant. There's not a hydrant immediately, adjacent or at the end of Whitney Drive. But we can certainly take a look.
Thank you, Mr. Plakey. But yeah,
We can look at
Burr,
that.
if you could look at that and
Yeah.
just see,
I can
is
talk to
there
the
a
fire official.
Is there a, standard that the fire hydrants should be within so many feet of one another?
Yeah, the fire official usually wants it 3 or 4, no more than 400 feet away, but we'll take a look at that.
Okay.
For sure.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Ms. Sikora?
I don't think that you spoke about trash enclosures. Where is that and how does trash work?
Sorry, I didn't want to repeat too much, but the trash is in the rear of the site, so you can see my screen. It's in the back of the parking. So that's, I guess, I don't want to, it's a trash enclosure, but it's a fenced-in pad. I think it's the way that we have it shown right now, that would hold the individual trash cans. So trash cans for like a typical single-family house, not a dumpster. So we're not intending, anyone to, have to drive in a trash truck with a dumpster. They're all the cans.
So the people who live there will put their trash in their own trash cans. Do they wheel it to the front, or does the trash company come and get it?
The residents will wheel it to the front.
Okay. Only other question, storage for outdoors, say they have kids. Well, we talked about a bike rack before, somebody brought that up. If a child has a bike, right, to park, is there any storage outside? Or will there be anything allowed to be stored outside, like extra toys or things like that?
As of right now, we don't have anything, structurally for any storage. I'm sure that, we can work with the residents as needed to, for anything. I don't know what I don't want to volunteer the patio space for any small storage or in that playground area, depending on what it is.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You've answered a lot of my questions regarding the lighting and the street light locations. That was great. We didn't talk about, or at least I had a couple concerns about utilities. I think you mentioned that there was an easement to the rear. You're not tying into that easement to the rear, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Instead, I think you testified you'll be tying in through the front.
Yeah, that's the intent, as long as the sewer department has no issues. But that's what we presented them, and that's what they seem to accept.
Okay. What other utilities are proposed for the structure?
Right now, we said the water, fire, sewer, and I have to double check if we had gas and electric. Just electric.
Just electric. I thought I read something that there was gas provided by Sunoco. Did I misread something?
So we, in our adjoiners list that we get from, I believe, the clerk, they also provide utility contacts. So the Sunoco was listed on there as a utility contact.
Okay, so at this time, there is no plans for a gas connection to the structure?
Correct.
Okay. Just looking at the front facing of the home, I did notice the berm. I'll let our board engineer talk about the drainage. I did see a small kind of recessed curb where that looks to be a utility that potentially makes its way underground. It's labeled on the site plan as TDC. This would be approximately 4 feet west of or 4 feet to the east of the cable TV box. It's a small little curb. It says TDC. It's recessed toward the curb line.
Sorry, you're talking about, is this the existing curb?
The existing curb.
Yeah, I guess there is an existing depression right now. I'm not sure what what it's there for now in the curb. I think it's generally in this location. I do believe one of your professionals referenced a French drain out there. I walked the site today and I didn't find any French drain. So I think, the contractor during normal construction activities would, make sure to cap or remove anything. But we're not having any, we don't have any proposed stormwater connections. So we would remove anything related to, and that curb is to be replaced, and it'll be 6 inches throughout the front of the site.
Perhaps I could ask a question for Mr. Burr. So I noticed there are also some pipes that are coming up in that area, and they're capped off. I know that, there have been essentially gas lines that have been installed throughout town. Is this one of those locations where potential gas lines have been installed?
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. I think our Public Works Department did a little bit of research at the request of the sewer utility, and I think what you have going on is there's 2 existing sewer laterals that have been capped, pre-existing, and one of them is on the left side or the west side of the property, and the other is on the far right side of the property. I don't know what kind of condition they are. I think our sewer utility mentioned that the applicant, if they did some research and some reconnaissance, if they found them to be in good repair, they could possibly reuse them and avoid having to cut into Whitney again, but I'll let the applicants take a look at that. The third clean out that we see out there that's labeled on the plans, again, on the left side or the west side of the property. So I would, and I don't know this for sure because I haven't seen it, but I was told that to address a pre-existing drainage issue with the next door property, there was some type of underground French drain, whatever you want to call it, where it's a 4-inch pipe, likely perforated, but I don't know for sure, wrapped in stone. That is one of the clean outs that's on the left side of the plan that cuts perpendicular into the property from Whitney Drive. So it almost serves as like an underground cutoff drain, because the property slopes right to left as you're looking at the property. As I'm told, that drain comes out under Whitney Drive and does a 90-degree bend and goes down to Shasta and connects to the storm system on Shasta, which is the nearest formal storm system. So there are a couple of utility connections. 2, I think, are old sewer laterals. 1 is drainage in nature. I'm not aware of any gas connection, though.
Okay, thank you. And I do have other drainage questions, but I'll defer that to you.
Okay.
The last question I had was, we didn't talk about the use of power generators, just in case, there's a power outage. What would be the policy there? Obviously, if there's no gas connection, these would be standalone generators, I'm assuming, that would be used. And how would they be connected to the home? Was it one per unit, or would it be one to power the entire structure?
I have not considered that. I guess there's, we're open to considering it, but we have not any formal considerations right now for generators.
Okay, perhaps when you do, you could speak with the administration, with the engineer, to make sure that we're within code, and curious to know also the decibel level of all of them as well, so.
Right.
Okay, and that's all I have for now. Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm looking for clarification on garbage disposal and recycling. Each unit going to have their own garbage pail, plus the 2 recycling buckets as well, so that's 15 buckets?
I don't think we have the specifics. I think the intent right now is to have 1 garbage can per unit and likely shared recycling cans for the building.
So each resident has to contract with a garbage disposal company?
I think the building as a whole, the owner and the applicant would do that contracting, and they would, but the tenants themselves would be responsible for taking the garbage from their unit to the trash can and from the trash can out to the street.
You kind of lost me there. Will,
The building management will provide for the curbside pickup. That's not going to be at the cost of the resident. The resident's only responsibility will be to take the garbage from the home, put it into the can, and then on collection days to get the cans out to the street for the curbside pickup.
okay, and the recycling?
Same concept. I believe recycling is performed by the township, so it'll be the same concept.
County.
Yeah, so the area that's gonna, these buckets are gonna be in can accommodate all of these buckets, right?
Right, they're going to be in the enclosure shown on the plan.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yeah, I have it, but.
Oh, I just had one, I guess, correction.
Mr. Banga.
I'm just taking a look, I can't find it anymore. Form number 4 said C3 current zoning district was C6 limited serve commercial zone. I think that needs to be corrected to an R10, a density residential zone.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I missed it.
Yeah, it's form number 4. At the top, it says C6 limited serve commercial zone. I think this needs to be resubmitted. No, that's it. Well, yeah, on the application site plan, at the bottom, it says zoning district R10A. There's just an inconsistency there.
Apologize.
I'll leave it to our board professionals if there's any inconsistency with the actual ordinance.
Is that all, Mr. Banga?
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next question.
Okay, following up with Mr. Bongiorno's questions, I understand the garbage can that somebody will have to basically, the tenant's responsibility is to move the garbage can to the park side. But since the recycling is a common one, who will put the recycling one?
So I noted during my testimony that we actually have our services team work with the tenants to create a schedule on who's going to take it out. So each tenant will probably have a rotating schedule on who's going to take it out. So we do that at all of our multifamily properties that have the similar kind of trash structure where, there may be 4 or 5 bins, but there's 5 or 6 tenants, and we'll have them actually on a schedule who's going to take it out on a weekly, bi-weekly basis based on the actual trash schedule.
Does it work well with that?
Works, yeah. We haven't had any issues with it so far.
Okay, no problem.
In 47 years.
Thank you. One more question to you. With this same drawing that you have got in a display now, you have got 22 feet so-called parking space, 22 feet wide, right? What's the width of the parking spaces? Parking lot, I should say. Is it 22 feet?
The drive aisle is 22 feet wide.
22 feet. And is this sufficient for fire truck to go towards the end while the cars are parking?
We haven't modeled it for the fire truck, so I can work with your fire department and your engineers to make sure that whichever fire truck is the likeliest to go into the site have access.
Yeah, I'm more worried about that basically a one-bedroom apartment on the corner, both from the second floor as well as the first floor on your west side. Because whether the fire truck, probably the fire truck will have to go on the corner without hitting any car parked there already. So, Mr. Barr, probably you may have to actually see this one, how it will fit. Since the garbage truck will not go outside, that doesn't apply anyway. Only the fire trucks may have to go to cover the one-bedroom apartment on the first floor and the second floor.
We'll coordinate with the fire department. I don't want to tell them how to fight a fire. My assumption would be that they would, most of this building can be accessed on foot instead of on the truck. But I'm happy to work with them and make sure that we've addressed all of their concerns from a firefighting perspective.
Okay, as long as you do it.
Looking at Mr. Scalera's, our fire marshal's report, and he does not mention that.
Ah, okay. Well, Mr. Scalera obviously knows everything very well. But kindly check it out anyway. Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Wang?
Thank you. Can you tell me how far the western property line to the adjacent house?
I do not know to the adjacent house. We are 15 feet from the property line. The adjacent property, if I had to guess, I'd say that we're a total of 25 feet from the adjacent house to house, from house to house.
Okay.
Approximation.
So, yeah, could you repeat why there are fences or you're not using fences on that side?
We have this long line of I believe it's pine trees that we have right there, but as landscaping. But I think we're open to fencing if that's ideal, if that's preferred.
Mm-hmm. The northern borderline has an existing fence, right? The neighbors, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, it looks like, I think he's here, right? It looks like he's got a line of trees, his fence, and then we have some trees and shrubs as well.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Chowdhury?
Yeah, I just want not to be too much of pain here, but on your form number 4, in your testimony, you said that, according to calculation, that car space came out to be about 6.75. And so you had it 7, which makes sense. But in the form, it came out to be ordinance requirement 7.5, and you have 7.
Yeah, I think I revised it in coordination with your planner's comment letter. So, the calculations with the EV, I guess, but per my testimony now, in their consultation, we're saying the requirement is 7.
Yeah, but remember, you had it in your plan, you have 2 EV space. Now you said that you will be reducing to 1, right? In your testimony, actually, you said that you will be reducing to 1.
We're open based off of your
Then your
planners.
calculation of 6.75 may not work out.
I'd have to pull out a pen to do the math.
Okay, I'll leave it up to Mr. Bauer if he's a more professional, experienced person, but either you basically correct this one, or otherwise, have a variance of 0.5 or whatever it can be.
Yeah, we will. I'll coordinate with your professionals to make sure that.
It's about Form 4 I'm talking about, Catherine. So.
So those forms, while they are submitted, sometimes aren't as accurate because they were submitted or they were done before the site plan was finalized or something like that. So I usually rely upon the site plan drawings.
Okay.
Generally, the requirement for parking particular to this use in the R10A zone is 1.5 spaces per unit,
Right.
which is less than usual. It's usually 2 per unit in the ordinance. So 1.5 per unit, 5 units, that's 7.5 spaces. And then the EV calculation takes off up to 10%, so up to 0.75 is the maximum you can reduce. Even though it's 1 full space, in this case they proposed 2, but let's say even just 1 full space, they still get the 10% allowance, which takes it down to 6 point.
That's where that 6.75 come from.
And then round it up to 7.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Perhaps a general question for Mr. Kellel, a little off topic. Does Triple C ever engage in like solar subsidies or solar paneling on their homes? Okay. Are there any plans in the future to install solar powering on this structure?
It's something we'd be open to if that was, again, a requirement. We would be open to looking at that. We do not currently have any solar on any of our existing portfolio. We do subscribe to the PSNG has a program for community solar that we actually subscribe to pass on some of the savings to our tenants.
In the event that you would install paneling in the future, it's my understanding the way the system works, you need a little extra real estate on the home in order to get that system installed. Would you have adequate space within the structure to install that? Okay. Okay, even the batteries and the electrical backbone of the system?
In multifamily, you tend to figure out where that power is going to go to. Usually it goes to the house panel, as opposed to one of the 5 individual ones. Because generally the owner of the building is to receive the subsidy and the power. So it could basically feed the house panel.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Kellum. If there are no other questions, I'd like to defer to our board professionals.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ian, a couple questions for you here. I know everybody's anxious to talk about drainage. I'm gonna let the suspense kind of linger for a little bit and hit you on some other ones. We talked a lot about lot coverage, and you had mentioned there was some typos on your forms, et cetera. Would you, as a condition of approval, agree to put an updated lot coverage chart on your plans to correspond with the percentages that you show in your?
Yeah, we can expand on the zone table and the form and put it on the plans.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I want to touch again on refuse. I'll make this quick. So the idea is that a garbage truck is not going to turn into your parking lot, but rather, I guess, operationally, what I'm hearing is that either tenants or your facility staff will wheel out individual garbage cans or recycling bins to the curb.
Correct.
And it'll be curb pickup.
Yes.
Okay. And tenant loading and unloading operations. You had mentioned, I think you had mentioned, one of the parking spaces deals or also doubles up as a loading space, or did I not hear that right?
No, I think,
describe for us how a tenant moves in and moves out of the building.
yeah, I guess there's, I envisioned, I guess, 2 options. One is we're at a dead-end street, and so any moving trucks, there's 5 units, so not often would someone move in and move out. So, could park on Whitney Drive and load with the sidewalk leading out to Whitney Drive. I guess alternatively, I assume management staff can work with the tenants if they needed to temporarily put a truck in the drive aisle for however, the brief period it needed to unload any load to specific things. And I don't know if this is your question, but yeah, we anticipated that Amazon or UPS or FedEx would more likely just park in front of the street and use our driveway as a turnaround.
And I see your plan is proposing a small extension at the end of Whitney Drive. Presumably that's to allow for better circulation in and out of your driveway? Is that why the road is being extended slightly?
Yeah, I guess it's twofold. One, the gray shading that I have shown is the proposed. So the limit right now is this area. So our full driveway does not have it. So it's kind of both.
Okay. All right. Your attorney mentioned a little while ago that the title search, I think, revealed the sewer easement on the northerly portion of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as I understand, the sewer connection from Lot 2 behind you guys, I think his sewer connection comes diagonally onto your property into that easement.
Gotcha.
And then travels out to Shasta. I don't know if that easement exists or not. If it doesn't, one of our comments is, let's make sure that that's recorded, at least on your portion of the property.
So I don't have it dimensioned, but we do have on our survey and on the site plan the rectangle that is the easement within our property. And I think we specifically did not propose the playground area over there. We don't have any landscaping in that area, so that easement is being maintained and not being disturbed.
And as, if necessary, we can memorialize those easement rights on your property, if it's necessary, if that easement doesn't exist as an executed document.
Yeah.
Make sure that's done.
Agreed.
We can do that. Yeah. All right. Lighting, real quick, we heard you're going to remove some of the wall packs in an effort to reduce some of the light pollution, the spillover onto adjacent properties, right?
Correct.
Revise the light plan to reflect that?
Yeah, so I guess having it in front of me, right, we have one on the west side, we'll definitely remove. I think there's 3 in the rear. So we'll remove the 2 on the west end. So, if it's okay, we'd have 1 generally in this area of the playground. And then I believe there's 2 along the side of the parking area.
Okay. Yeah, I think remove certainly the wall packs from the west side of the building. Remove as many of them from the rear as possible and focus just the exterior lighting in the driveway parking area. So you'll take a look at that.
Agreed.
All right, last thing, want to touch on drainage. So you're correct. You are not a major development by nature of the size of the property and the amount of impervious coverage that you're proposing. But I think you still have an obligation to do something to manage your drainage, your runoff coming from this property. One of the concerns I have is that there is not formal drainage infrastructure on Whitney Drive itself. So anything that's coming from your 7,000 square feet of new coverage is going to drain out onto Whitney, potentially causing icing issues, making a mess as it travels down to Shasta. So in addition to taking a look at your plan to ensure that the swale and berm system is well drawn out on the plans, I would challenge you to see if there's a way, whether it's a small-scale basin, a dry well system, something on this property that you can capture at least the roof runoff of the building. See what your options are. I think you have some room in the front of the property, and I would ask if that's something that you and really your client would be willing to take a look at.
Yeah, I think that's an appropriate request that we can work with you and them on to. We did look through the town code. I didn't see anything, any standards on dry wells for single-family homes, but we can
There's
definitely. Okay.
There are not standards. What I will say is if you're not triggering the major development requirements, there's a fallback clause in the ordinance that is very generic from a drainage perspective. It's 126-280. And it basically includes language speaking to ensuring that no development is going to negatively impact public right-of-ways or downstream properties, increasing flooding and erosion issues on adjacent properties. So it's kind of a catch-all section of the ordinance. That's what we have to target, because I'm not convinced at 7,000 square feet of new coverage, we're not going to have a problem downstream.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah, we can.
There's not individual requirements for dry wells. I think if the board's comfortable with that, I'm happy to work with the applicant on that.
Yes.
But I think it's something that has to be included.
Understood.
In the design.
Ms. Fina, we can put that down as a condition.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Board Engineer, Mr. Burr. Any other questions from our board? Ms. Sarmed?
I only had one comment, really. I think everything else has been captured that was in my review. Regarding the EV space, technically pursuant to the EV requirements, it's really only 1 space that's required. I think 2 would be excessive, particularly because those are not just general spaces that if you have an EV, you could. Technically, the EV standards statewide, there's towing offenses and even though it's on private property, it's just like a handicap spot. It's treated the same way. And so the more parking that is particularly set aside ADA and EV spaces in this lot, the less parking there is for people that don't. So if there's no EV cars, you've basically lost 2 spaces. So I think under the state standards, they'd meet it under the 1 parking space, and I think that that's probably plenty for the property.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Sarmed. Any further comments? Any comments from our members of the public? Good evening, welcome. Please state your name and address for the record.
My name is James Blakey, 956th Avenue.
Okay.
I'm right in back of the property. Ready?
I'm ready for you.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not at all happy with the drainage of the parking lot. I have enough problems right now with water, as do my neighbors. I don't know why isn't it drained to Whitney? Maybe I can ask you that. The driveway should be drained to the south, not to the north. That doesn't make any sense.
Generally, because of
My driveway is drained to the street. Everybody's driveway is drained to the street.
It's just the way that the existing topography works. If we were to, go up the Whitney Drive at 4% and then up the driveway, it would push the building up higher than the driveway, and then it would create, our site would then sit, feet above yours, and so the kind of the settlement was a ridge line in the center that allows the building to sit higher, so nothing's draining into the building, and it'll wrap around the building to Whitney.
It's going to create a huge problem for me. Since they built 475 North Bridge Street, the commercial building, I've had problems with my water in the basement, and so does Manny. That's the reason why on the west side, the town came and put a French drain for Manny, because he complained to the town about getting water in his basement. I didn't complain, I didn't get it, which is something I'm looking for now, either from them or from the town. I need a similar French drain on the east side of my property, because I'm getting water from North Bridge Street, and I'll be getting a lot of water from this development. So I need a French drain on my property, just like Manny has. That's a big problem. And if I'm going to get more water, that's an issue. Even if it goes to the back of their property, it's still going to come down underneath my fence and come into my basement. I'm sure of that.
Board Engineer, Mr. Burr, if the township should sustain a storm similar to what we've seen in recent past, where there's significant rainfall, is the current system, especially in the rear of the property, to the north, I should say, is the current berm that's there adequate enough to be able to sustain that type of stormwater filtration? Or, yeah.
It's not clear. I'll be honest. The way the drawing is currently prepared, there's a high point halfway into the proposed driveway and parking area, where the front half of the driveway is supposed to drain down towards Whitney, and the rear half is supposed to drain to the rear of the property, I believe with the idea that that rear runoff is then going to be captured in a swale and taken around the building back to Whitney.
Mm-hmm.
I would ask the applicant's engineer to take a look. Maybe there's a way that the design can be tweaked to, instead of having a high point halfway down the driveway, maybe we can just have it all drain towards Whitney and manage it accordingly that way. And then we're not impacting the resident that lives to the rear, especially if there's a pre-existing issue from Northbridge, because that whole property does, it slopes pretty uniformly from right to left coming down the hill, from the commercial property down. So I think if we can keep everything focused towards the front and then manage it the way we just discussed with a couple of different options, I think that's probably the best case scenario, if the applicant's willing to do that. And then we avoid exacerbating any potential pre-existing issues.
I'll quickly add on. Agreed, right? We will definitely want to work with the engineer and the neighboring to make sure that to reduce the flooding. I guess to kind of articulate the thought process in the grading was that we wanted to limit any drainage, again, directed towards the building. So right now, the ridge line is in the center with everything kind of directed, page north and page south, northwest and southwest. To have everything drain up originally, the technical term I'm going to use is I didn't want to roller coaster this driveway too much. So I didn't want to have one single slope that would both drain away from the building in one section to go down and then have to come back in the other direction because Whitney is draining to the west. That being again, that was my thought process in the original design last year, but I'm definitely willing to work with the engineer to make sure that there's a happy compromise to make sure that there's we're limiting anything directed towards the building and it's all getting directed away from our neighbors.
Mr. Burr, is there's some type of below grade system that you could put in the driveway where it redirects some of the runoff from the northerly side of the driveway through an underground piping?
Sure. Yeah, there's a number of different ways that the applicant can introduce new features to help better manage the runoff. Yeah, there's any number of different techniques that can be employed. It could be underground, it could be surface related, there could be a small scale basin, there could be a rain garden. You could have actual underground catchment systems either under or adjacent to the driveway. There's a number of different techniques that they can employ, but they are possible.
And again, all right, again, agreed to work with you on any of the BMPs, whether it be dry well, anything that underground. I think we do have a geotech report that indicated it's not infiltrating well, so I just want to work with you on what the town standards versus the state standards to make sure that anything that we send underground is sized, appropriately, accordingly, reasonably so.
Understood. I have no problem with that.
Perfect. Anything you could do to work with our engineers, that'd be great. You've got a children's playset back there too that I don't think is going to be very useful if that becomes a swale full of water either. But thank you very much for that. Any further comments?
Can the downspouts be drained, could pipe to the street, to Whitney Drive?
I guess I work with Steve on that one, but yes, I'm sure we can make sure that the roof runoff is directed, is intended to direct towards Whitney instead of to the back.
So the runoff wouldn't come to Manny's house?
Yeah, I think we can point to the street. I'm not sure. I have to double check if the town has rules on piping through curb or underground, or if we're just talking about at splash blocks. But we can make sure that the building is pointed drainage-wise towards Whitney Drive.
Yeah, and to that point, Mr. Chairman, easiest thing for the roof is to capture it and put it in a dry well, and then have an overflow pipe pointed towards the road. I wouldn't necessarily just want the roof runoff piped directly to the road, because then we're introducing potential issues. But I think we have the framework of a discussion that we can have here, and certainly assure the resident that things aren't going to be made worse, and we're going to try to improve the plan to make sure that he has no drainage issues as a result of this project.
Very good.
And the drainage that Manny does is on the west side of this lot, on the east side of this lot. Manny complains to the town, and that's the reason why it's on this lot.
Okay.
And they do that on my lot. I didn't complain, that's why I'm here.
Well, I couldn't commit to that.
This board cannot respond to that question.
Okay.
They cannot commit to that now.
Okay.
But the township administrator is here, and it's noted.
Okay, because the town supplied it for Manny, they should be able to supply it for me, I would think.
For the record, do you want to say the address for Manny? So we have it.
Franco is on Whitney Drive, next door to this lot. I don't know the number on Whitney Drive.
Okay. So it's the one that we're seeing on the picture. Yep.
It's on the 200-foot list. It's Block 511, Lot 4, 1 Whitney Court East.
Okay, thank you.
And the last issue is I'd like to see more screening in the back. More shrubbery, more trees. I paid a fortune for the trees that are there, but since you're building the structure, and that's going to tower over my house. My house is a very low, 1,000 square foot ranch. This is 5,000 square feet. It's going to be high. I really need better screening. I'm going to be looking at a gigantic building in back of me, and it's not very far from the property line.
I do see proposed plantings that you have close to the trash basin area. Are those new?
All the landscaping on this rendering is new. So we have two shrubs near the trash. I think it's one or two in the corner, and then three in the back.
Could we explore a discussion to potentially adding another one of those smaller trees that's closer to the trash basin?
Or the trees that are in the corner, in the northeast corner, can they be moved to the other side of the trash structure? Because the corner, you're really screening the trash unit from the professional office building, and maybe to move those trees so Mr. Plakey's home is screened more than the office building.
Yeah, I think
possible.
We can look into it based off of tree clearances. This was generally intended to be open for the playground area, so I didn't want to get enclose it too much, and then anything over in this area gets close to that sewer easement. But I can look into it and see, and make sure that,
Yes,
whatever.
just maybe adjust the trees so there's a maximum screening for the back of the house, the back of this structure.
Mr. Chairman, I think some additional, there's the arborvitaes, the green, they're similar to the green giants, but this is the native species, or on the list is Niagara cedar, or known as the Thuja occidentalis. But there's a few of those around the trash enclosure, and then there's some more deciduous trees further west. I think if they supplemented with a few more of those arborvitaes, that would be helpful. And those don't need that much. They don't need that much space. You can plant them. They'll go vertical and they'll go wide. You could probably plant them, 5 to 10 feet on center, and you'd be fine. So I think to supplement with a few of those, if the applicant is willing to do that, I think would be helpful from a screening perspective.
I think we can agree to that.
Amenable? Thank you.
I agree with that, except the fact that the deer eat some of them, so I don't know if that.
They've put a few inkberry holly trees at the base of some of the deciduous trees. I think if they add in just a few, deer sometimes get ravenous in New Jersey, and they'll eat holly somehow. But if you put the hollies at the bottom, it'll stop them from at least eating the base of the tree. And I think you have a 6-foot fence or so you wouldn't see that anyway. But yeah, if the deer come, hopefully the hollies will stop them from coming in and poke them a little bit.
Well, the trees that are on 475 North Bridge that we're supposed to screen my property are all eaten by deer. You can go and look at them. I could see right into the property because deer.
I believe it. So we'll try, I think if the applicant's willing to do a little bit of supplementation, subject to review, by the board professionals, that'd be fine.
Don't think there's anything as such as deer resistant, unfortunately, so we'll try. Thank you, Mr. Blakey. Is that all?
And I thank the board for listening to me.
Thank you very much. Our pleasure. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, hearing none, that'll close the public portion for this witness. Thank you very much for your testimony. Do you have any other witnesses this evening?
We do not. That concludes, excuse me, that concludes our presentation of evidence.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fina, could we list the list of conditions that we've amassed thus far?
So, might need some help from the board. So, the one condition I think is the primary one is the applicant is to work with our professionals to address any stormwater runoff. From our just recent discussion, the applicant will work with our professionals to address and supplement the tree plan. Going through my list, have I missed any? Those are the two major ones I've noted.
There were suggestions for a bike rack.
I'd like to see that. Is that something the board would like to request as a condition?
Is there support for a bike rack?
I'm sorry.
Bike rack.
Yes.
Yes.
We could add that as a
Yeah,
condition.
third condition would be the addition of a bike rack. And was anything else I missed?
That the services would be provided only for the 5 tenants on site, so any special services.
Okay, thank you. So the condition number 4 would be that the special services being provided on site would only be for the residents who reside there.
Yes.
I think I wanted to ask that maybe the township engineer be authorized to consult with the fire official to confirm the necessity of the additional fire hydrant.
The applicant agreed to putting a revision on the plan sheet for the lot coverage calculation.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. The applicant agreed to putting a revision on the plan for a lot coverage calculation, so a description of how the lot coverage is achieved. And I believe Mr. Magura had requested the preservation of any mature trees that, to the extent possible.
Well, certainly, I'd like to see a count and just a list of trees.
Yeah.
List of trees.
Yeah, the list of the existing trees.
Yourself?
And I think one of the conditions, if the applicant's willing to kind of embellish on that, is how I envisioned it, was that any mature trees that could be preserved, be preserved. Any others?
Yeah.
Any other conditions?
I don't believe we have any others. We talked about just general agreements between,
Yeah.
discussing with the township and following the existing ordinances. Okay, so we satisfied all conditions and requests. I'll go ahead and open it up to deliberations. Here's some final comments from the board. I'll start on this end here. Mr. Bongiorno.
Motion to open up for voting.
Any comments?
I think they've done a fine job. I looked at all the drawings. They've satisfied all my questions. I think other than the items about the water and the trees, I think they pretty much nailed it. So I'm in favor of the application.
Mr. Wang.
Yeah, I appreciate all the preparation, the witness. Yeah, I think it's well planned, and also I like the attitude the applicants try to accommodate our request. So, yeah, I'm in favor of this application.
Mr. Magura.
Basically, we're all in agreement about trees and water, all concerned about it. I'm concerned specifically in this case about specimen trees as defined by the town code, which is 8 inches and greater in diameter. So I think you need to take a look at that and transmit that information to the town, Mr. Berger.
Mr. Atkins.
I like to see collaborative planning, and I like to see, the applicant being receptive to our discussion and our comments, and also concerned neighbors. So overall, I think, I personally have family members who have actually lived with deaf communities in arrangements like this. So I like to see that this is coming to Bridgewater, so I will be voting in favor.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yes, thank you. Actually, the plan looks fantastic. The overall neighborhood will look actually very good with this plan. Thank you very much for the nice design. I think we are a common voice here. Water, trees, and specifically because of it is a deaf community, so we need to have some extra, at least in institutional wise, extra precautions for everything. So that's basically the extra dimension. You have to think about it, not because only the code, just because you are meeting the code, please don't think about it. At least also think about yourself, how you're serving the community. It's very wise things to do. Thank you very much. I'm in support of it otherwise.
Mr. Banga.
Yeah, just to echo the rest of my fellow colleagues here, I think it's fit for the location. So I think beneficial to the area where it is very suitable. Just to reiterate on the trees and working with the neighbors related to the water issues. Thanks.
Mr. Chartowitz.
Yeah, I would like to commend Triple C for their work that they're doing in the community. It definitely shows that you are community-centered and you're really focused on, the population that you're helping. And we like to see that you're meeting the needs of those that are, maybe not being met right now in our community. So, and I do thank you for all of the collaboration and I'm in support and in favor of the application, subject to all the conditions.
Vice Chair, Ms. Sikora.
Yeah, thank you. I'm also inclined to approve the application. I appreciate all you do for the community and your willingness to adapt pretty quickly without much pushback on water and trees and bike rack to make it great for the community too. And the neighbors.
Councilwoman Isla.
Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to remind everyone, this week, actually, yesterday, we started the National Public Health Week. So, perfect timing for your application. So thank you for being so thoughtful and sharing your ideas with us today. And yeah, as long as we meet all the, I also thank our resident that came by and spoke about his concerns. That's very important that we incorporate what we can. But yeah, I'm very positive that this will be a welcome addition to our community.
Town Administrator, Mr. Pappas.
I want to add my support, reiterate the importance of addressing the drainage concerns here that we've all talked about, and certainly the landscaping. I do want to say that I think the presentation, Mr. Sullivan, you and your team, you did an excellent job. I think one of the most thorough and comprehensive presentations that I've seen from most applicants. And you were very thorough, you're professionals. Mr. Kell, you were all very thorough and answered questions in detail, and were very responsive to the concerns that have been raised. Other applicants should follow your example. But the design of the building, I think, is beautiful, and I think it will be an asset to the community. And again, it's important to be neighborly, and I think you've heard that the board wants to encourage you to be neighborly for the neighbors. So congratulations. Look forward to seeing this constructed and this population being served very uniquely here. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for working with our fellow residents, the local community. Again, the structure is a very handsome structure. We look forward to seeing it in the community. And thank you very much for the testimony this evening and for answering most of the board's questions here. I think all of the board's questions in great detail, as Administrator Pappas said. Thank you very much. I'm also in support of the application. With that, I'll take a motion to approve the application with said conditions.
Make a motion.
That's Ms. Sikora. Mr. Bongiorno is a second. Roll call,
Chairman
please.
Vecchio.
Yes.
Mr. Bongiorno.
Yes.
Councilwoman Isla.
Yes.
Mr. Magora.
Yes.
Mr. Wang.
Yes.
Ms. Sikora.
Yes.
Mr. Banga.
Yes.
Mr. Pappas.
Yes.
Ms. Chartowich.
Yes.
Mr. Chowdhury.
Yes.
Mr. Atkins.
Yes.
Congratulations to you all. We look forward to seeing you in the community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night, everybody.
You as
Night.
well. Okay, moving along, we have no other business this evening. However, if we could just address the packet that's been delivered to or put in front of the board members this evening.
That is for you all to hold on to until we assign it a date. It is a courtesy review, so it's just slightly different from a regular board application. We'll have more information on the date at the next meeting.
Very good. And any other business coming up within the next few weeks that we should discuss?
No, nothing emergent. Next hearing, we have scheduled the Wheatsworth continuance as well as the Muller application, which is a minor subdivision, more of a lot line adjustment. So you may get an extra packet delivery. Other than that,
Okay. Could you remind the board of that date, please, at the next meeting?
April 21st.
If I could just get a quick preliminary roll call for 421.
What is that one again?
We're okay with, we can just.
We're okay with the quorum? Very good. Okay. Any other questions or comments? With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Mr. Chowdhury, second.
Second.
Councilwoman Isla, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.